What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a live edition of the hot tags and the mailbag, the bag and tag, and other things. I don't know what we're going to be getting into here. We are on episode number 567 of the hot tags, and you know how the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast goes by now. But if you don't, I'm your host as always, Tony Mango. Joining me as always are Callum Wiggins.
Hey there.
And Robert DeFelice.
Hello.
I can see that we got Peter in the chat. I'm hoping that we get some other people in here as well funneling in. This is kind of, we didn't really have like a set time that we're going to start. And, we're kind of doing this on the fly. That's kind of the point of the mailbag in some regard. So anybody who does, that English fucking degree that I have is going to use.
Proud of you every day, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone who does pop up, by all means, you can, do some super chats or anything. You can toss some mailbag questions in there here and there. If you are listening to this after the fact, drop your comments below. Tell us your thoughts on whatever we talk about here and anything else you want to chime in about. And if you are overall here on YouTube, then hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell as well. If you check out the other things that are on the Marketplace, you can see on your screen right now, you've got that join button that's up on there where you can click on that and get access to the same things that are over on the Patreon, patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment, where you got the Dark Cast here. We recorded one of those yesterday where we got deep into the idea of WrestleMania rematches and ended up having like an hour and a half discussion about just that topic for the most part. It's one of the most single focused Dark Casts that we've had in quite some time. I think probably
Callum was there.
Maybe that was before we start, deviating into completely pointless discussions of other things. You also got to pick your poison tier. You got the little thanks button on there if you want to help out on that way. And, if you're the type of person who picks up merchandise from the things that you're into, then Redbubble and TeePublic are where you can find all that stuff. But that's enough plugging right now. We get into this in whatever way that we can here. Peter says, is it me or do Rob and Callum sound robotic? They're sounding fine on my end.
I might sound robotic. Who the hell knows?
Actually, there is maybe something a little bit wrong that I'm seeing on the screen right now because currently Rob and Callum are on the same feed for this. So we might end up having some audio issues along here. That we've had that issue in the past, and sometimes it's been that we need to kind of switch the Skype call around. So if it ends up being an issue and you continue to hear any kind of robotic stuff or something, let me know. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep recording, assuming that it's recording okay. But that might be something that we might have to figure out afterward. It all looked like it was working fine when I got started. So, I don't know. We did have a little bit of Skype issues when we first started. Maybe that's just kind of carrying over. But yeah, let me know if anybody has any kind of issues. And then we can, we can even restart the stream if we needed to. But hot tags are, I guess, how we should get into some of these discussions. We'll kind of bounce around, talk about some mailbag stuff here and there too. One of them being the first one that I have listed, at least right now. There's no always have to start off with this or something, but the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Championship belt has been unveiled. I think this is hideous.
So I had sent this to you guys saying, I don't know if it's ugly or if I love it. And I'm kind of just still right in there. Like, it's such a simple looking belt that I love the simplicity of it. But it's also kind of blech. What do you think, Cal?
I don't care about designs of title belts.
Really?
I just don't. They don't matter to me as long as the title's prestigious. Like, I don't think it's definitely not the best looking belt out there, but it's not hideous. I think people are overblowing it. The only title I've ever thought is absolutely hideous is the Universal Championship.
What's so bad about it?
Because it's bright red, and it was bright red and blotchy. That was the thing that really, and it started like, okay, this is just a carbon copy of the WWE title that you just painted red, and that was the thing that kind of like annoyed me about that one. Whereas this one, at least, I understand it's not going to be for everyone's cup of tea, but it is at least unique. I don't think there's any other title belt that looks like that, and you can say that's a very bad thing and you'd be well within your right to say it's an ugly looking belt. It certainly won't go on the Mount Rushmore alongside the Winged Eagle and all those other title belts, but I think that there is a certain charm to its unique looking, but the uniqueness of it.
It looks way too much like a belt buckle to me. Like an actual, just, a belt you'd see somebody in like Texas wearing or whatever. Too bland. Too, I like more angular, squared off kind of designs, like the Intercontinental Championship, more than I do the rounder ones. But it's too rectangular for me. Like, it's just a rectangle. And yeah, I think this is one of the ugliest belts that I've ever seen that I can remember.
I think that's a bit much, but okay.
I think it's absolutely terrible. I think this is the type of thing that I would have been able to draw when I was a kid. As like, that's close as I can do for a belt, So we're getting bad audio quality going on. Is it really that something's going off on that?
I'm also going to listen back. Let's see.
Yeah, it's really, really bad.
Oh my god, yeah, we sound horrible.
Huh. Is it everybody or is it just you two?
It's just me and Rob.
So we definitely have something going on Skype. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this stream going and I'm going to end the call on Skype with these guys and I'm going to call them back. And in the meantime, you guys will still be able to hear me. I'll still try to be talking to you guys. I'm going to see if maybe that's the issue because I think that it's a Skype problem more than anything else. So in the meantime, when I do that, keep in mind, the guy 123 in the chat says, can you review Impact Bound for Glory? And we're going to come back to that in a moment. Let me end this Skype call and let me try to start another one going on here. Apologies for this, everybody, but you kind of do things as they go along. Hopefully this will end up working much, much better. I'm going to get them in on the call right now. It's looking like they are connected again. Let's see how this goes. Say something, guys.
I'm worried too.
All right. Well, Callum's separate than Rob, so that's a good sign. Rob is separate than Callum.
I'm going to have a listen.
Peter says, damn Skype. Yeah, all these years, everybody has said to me.
I don't hear Callum at all.
You don't hear Callum at all?
On the recording. I hear him in the call. I don't hear him in the recording.
Oh, we're on a delay, remember? At least a little bit of a delay. Can you guys in the chat hear Rob and Callum?
I hear myself.
Yeah, I've heard myself back now, at least on the recording, and it sounds a lot better. So
there we go.
Yeah, we do sound better. Okay.
Yeah, because you guys are on a separate feed now instead of looping back. Probably
that was not good.
We sorted it out. Hashtag Tony Fixes America. Good to know. Thank you for the chat heads up on that.
Peter, everyone, for letting us know.
That way we didn't have like an hour-long discussion. I gotta have to listen back and hear how awful it was. So, guy in the chat said, can you review Impact Bound for Glory? I didn't watch it. Did you guys?
I can. I had to cover it. Impact Bound for Glory, it was a solid show, right? Like, they did some pretty cool things. Kazarian won the X Division title. We already know that he's cashed that in using Option C, which it's been 10 years, and they're still calling it Option C based off of an ultimatum given to Austin Aries by Hulk Hogan. So Kazarian's going to be going for the world title now. The X Division title is vacant. The Death Dolls won the tag team titles. You kind of saw that coming. For right now, Deonna and Chelsea, they're still with the company, but I guess we'll see where that goes. Let's see. Bully Ray won the Bound for Glory Call Your Shot Gauntlet, which is not a good thing. I don't think we're in an era where Bully Ray needs to be the focal point of Impact Wrestling television.
Wasn't he supposed to retire like 8 years ago or something? Maybe it wasn't 8 years ago. But like, wasn't he like too injured to be able to wrestle again?
I think you're thinking of Devon. You could be thinking about that. I don't know,
I
but
don't
like
remember for sure.
he's gonna be going for their world title at some point. He's got like the Money in the Bank aspect to it. Rhino's back. He'll be challenging for the tag titles with Heath Slater next week. If you read the spoilers, you know how that goes.
How is that still a team? They throw Heath Slater and Rhino together because they're like, I don't know, fucking you two can just have some matches. We need more tag teams. And it's been, what, 6 years?
The other backup team was the Headbangers, Tony. Let's
They had
see
the
what
Spirit
else.
Squad for a while.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, 2016 was a weird time.
That was really weird, yeah.
Let's see. You had Raven went into the Hall of Fame. He kind of like a nice induction speech. He talked a lot about his being diagnosed with several mental health disorders. Tommy Dreamer inducted him. Tommy Dreamer ate a DDT. That was pretty cool.
He gave Dreamer a DDT after he got inducted? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Just fuck you, Dreamer. Thank you.
Because they're enemies forever. That's the beauty of it. It's like if Brett inducted Sean, you gotta eat shit. Jordan Grace beat Masha Slamovich. It was probably the best match of the night to me. I was surprised that Jordan Grace won, but it was a really good match. It looks like they are gonna go with maybe Mickey versus Jordan at some point down the line. Mickey also beat Mia Yim. And of course, Josh Alexander beat Eddie Edwards. Honor No More is kind of going away because Bennett, Taven, and Vincent are all done. If you know anything about spoilers for other shows, they'll be popping up somewhere else very soon. And it was fine. Like, Bound for Glory was fine. It was the least offensive of the 7 shows I had to watch last Friday. Right? So, I don't know. I'm just not big on TNA focusing on Bully Ray all these years later. I think that's a step backward for them.
Has anybody done the obligatory honor no more thing?
Well, no, because they haven't
officially said that it's happening.
Yeah. I'm sure that they will.
They better. Or else what am I? Not gonna watch it. I was like, wait a minute, what am I gonna threaten with them? I don't watch it to begin with. Is it worth, you think, for anybody to check out Bound for Glory? Is it like, because Guy in the chat says one of the best shows of the year, better than what WWE has done.
Okay, wrestling is subjective. Let's start there. I don't think it was that good. It was a fine show for Impact. My issues with Impact Wrestling, I've talked about a lot, are the aesthetics of it. I really think that they need to kind of up the quality of their production a little bit because it looks so much more Bush League than it is. And I think if they can slightly up the production values, they can be a really strong C-tier company, which is what wrestling needs, because everybody can't go to WWE and AEW. So I want to see them improve in that way moving forward. But I'll always support Impact. I've been a fan of theirs for 20 years.
TNA is not my thing, but there's a niche for everybody. And certain people are...
I think the Impact Zone was a good idea. I think the idea of being in, you kind of get a space and you run shows in that one space. Because they're touring right now, but they're running small venues in these big cities. And I think you could probably make your show look better if you were able to do something like you were doing with the soundstage all those years ago.
Do you guys tend to like that soundstage thing, like that old school NWA, whatever? I've never been the biggest fan of it.
I think it's weird, right? Because there's a soundstage like AEW Dark did and like Impact did, and then there's like a studio like NWA. I think they all have their charms. I'm a big fan of all of it if you can make it work to the best of your ability and not just and we're here in the NWA and we're in a studio, because isn't that what old school wrestling is? It's like, if you can do that and modernize it and not have it be, oh, but this is wrestling the way you liked it. I think you can get a lot of benefit from that.
What about you, Callum? You got like any pros or cons when it comes to that type of presentation?
I think fundamentally the key thing about it is that it saves you money by the fact that you're not touring as much, you're just using a single location to film your wrestling. So for companies that don't have the ability to generate revenue at the same rate as a WWE or AEW, or doesn't have the revenue behind them at the same level, that is a very cost-effective option. The only disadvantage, well, the major disadvantage of the consistent soundstage or studio is that you will likely be getting the same crowd every single week. And the issue there is if you're not presenting something that's particularly interesting or exciting, then the crowd will die pretty quickly. And then you're just performing wrestling every single week in front of the same people who are tired of seeing the same shit week in, week out. I thought TNA in the early days managed to get around this pretty well with the Impact Zone. I think the crowd was always pretty into what they were watching.
Kind of like NXT, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely with the Full Sail crowd.
The Full Sail crowd, yeah.
Yeah, it was the same people turning up over and over again. And towards the end of NXT's run, I think that was becoming a detriment because it was just the same crowd, and that's why it was actually good that they started touring. And now they're in the same boat, really, because they all do it from the Capital Wrestling Center. So there's only so many people that are going to be cycled in and out of these shows, and that's why you get these cliques like the people that really hated MSK for some reason.
Yeah.
And so I think that, there's definitely, that's the negative side of things. I think everywhere else, it's pretty much positive because you can be consistent with your presentation. You can figure out where the best angles are for your cameras and all this other stuff. You definitely save a lot of money by not having to tour around. It's better, again, this obviously doesn't apply to a wrestling fee, but it's obviously better for the environment. It's probably better for the wrestlers. They don't have to travel as much.
Mm-hmm.
They get to live in the area around there, and so they can just travel into work. It's almost like just a standard job for them where they just commute in every now and again, especially with Impact's approach at the moment, which is to do tapings over the course of a weekend, and that basically covers them for about a month or two. So, yeah, I think that they should have a single home base to do most of their stuff and maybe tour every now and again and do some additional shows for their pay-per-views and stuff. But they do definitely need to make that one home base that they have look a lot better than it currently does because it is very super indie.
Yeah.
I mean,
on that.
The last time that I remember watching anything that was TNA based or Impact based, they are still going by Impact, right? More like
they are still going by Impact. Listen,
it's just that it's a habitual like TNA.
Like, if I bought that company today, I'd be like, we're going back to TNA. Everybody calls it TNA. We're going back to TNA. It's TNA.
I would never buy that company today. I mean,
yeah,
I'd buy it if it was what I could afford. If I'd be like, yeah, $100.
You should never turn it back to TNA. TNA was a dumb name. That was a joke by Vince Russo.
But I think it ended up having equity. Yes, it was a dumb joke by Vince Russo, but not everybody has to be like, hey, did you know Vince Russo made this name TNA? The name Impact Wrestling is kind of lame. Like, I don't like when promotions are just, well, it's the name of the show.
Maybe they go, hey, we got a new name for it, S&M. What would S&M stand for? Sports
and matches.
Sports and matches. Guy in the chat says Bully Ray was a really good heel, and I like the fact that he is in this position because he is not going to win the belt. I feel Jeff Hardy is one of the biggest screw-ups in wrestling history. The fact that he had more chance, and then the retract the message.
I mean, well, to answer the Bully Ray thing, I think he will win the belt because
from Alexander,
their Impact. Yeah, I think he will because why not? That's going to be the argument to it. And as far as the Jeff Hardy thing, I think everybody deserves chances to improve their lives and become better human beings. I just wish that the wrestling industry wasn't so inherently toxic for Jeff.
I mean, the last that it seems that at least that I've come across was that he's supposedly doing a little bit better, which is good, but Yeah, we've talked about that a thousand times about the whole, yeah, you can say one thing and then let's see it. But let's get to a mailbag question here over from what Howard had sent in. Howard, usually going old school, has as well here. If Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham, never had those bad knees after returning in 1986, would he have gotten a title shot against Hulk Hogan, or would Graham's stay have been a bit longer at the very least? This is not my field of expertise. I honestly don't think I could tell you a single move that superstar Billy Graham does. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know what his finisher is even. And he's always just seemed like a guy that, is like an era forgotten for me. Yeah, he's the pre-Hulk Hogan. You take him and you take like Ventura and one or two other guys and you get Hulk Hogan. And that never really appealed to me to go back and watch. But I would assume if he had stuck around that they probably would have done something where he would have fought Hogan, unless they got, like, he was how old was he probably around that time?
I think all you really need to know about this is that they were teasing a Ventura return in 87 anyway. So it's clear that if he could have wrestled, he would have. I think maybe they could have done a brief angle with Hogan, but I think he would have ultimately become one of the Hogan pals in that way.
Kind of like I don't know, like a mentor almost. Like superstar Billy Graham is kind of
a little bit, because I mean it's no secret Hogan's been open about it in the past. He kind of stole the bit from Graham, You
have any thoughts on that, Callum? About any like possible angles he would have gone with?
The question about if a guy didn't get injured, which ended his career, he would still have a career.
Well, if it had like a program with Hogan or something.
Hold on, listen. You're not gonna rip his poor question to shit, though.
I'm gonna rip his question to shit if I want to. This is the whole platform. He sends the question in, he suffers the consequences of the actions.
I mean, the idea of would he stick around? Like, yeah. But as far as like,
he was a former world champion. Of course, I don't think it's necessarily like. I think there's a good chance that he would have fought him. I mean, we had Bob Backlund come back and win the world title years afterwards, and that was the guy that beat Backlund in the first place. Beat Graham in the first place. So I think there was a good chance they could have done a one-off match between superstar Billy Graham and Hogan, just because of the reputation that he carried. If he still had the ability to do so.
Did they ever do Hogan and Backlund in a match?
No, because they were both babyfaces.
Yeah.
I mean, like they never, somewhere along the line in WCW, he popped up for a fucking one shot or something. Because I couldn't think of any offhand.
He was actually a WWF lifer guy. I don't think he ever popped up in WCW.
He never did.
So, they said instead went with the Pipers stuff and all those, and Warrior and all those other people that Hogan could fight instead. But yeah, I think Graham versus Hogan would have made a lot of sense, and the move into some sort of a mentor figure would work as well, even though Graham was pretty much a bona fide heel for his entire run.
I think there would have been more with Jesse versus Hogan too, if they didn't have to.
Oh, they really Jesse wanted to fight Hogan.
Yeah, I mean all the time. All the time.
That whole era too is so interesting to me in a different kind of way, where like I don't have any itch to rewatch like a Jesse Ventura match, but I think it's so weird and cool in some ways, and cringeworthy in other ways when you look back on their status as action heroes. Because I approach a lot of things through the entertainment side, because I'm a big fan of movies and everything. It's like one of my main sources of entertainment and joy in my life. It sounds awful to say, but like Hogan's this 80s action hero, kind of guy, and you got like Ventura is filling that role in things like Predator, and he has that sort of thing going on for him, and I'm like, it seems like that would have been such a natural thing to do. And I'm sure if they would have been healthy enough and, they would have had the same approach that they do these days, we would have gotten maybe at like a WrestleMania even. Hulk Hogan versus Jesse the Body Ventura. I don't know if that would have been like WrestleMania 2 or something, or shit, even WrestleMania 1 could have been a possibility.
Yeah, I'm sure that if he could have done it, there probably would have been a lot more emphasis on Jesse.
I mean, it would have had to been like a tag team match because, like, as soon as they got Mr. T for WrestleMania, he was going to main event the show.
I think he would have just taken the place of Orndorff.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I thought he would have probably. I think he probably would have been more likely to take the place of Bob Orton and be their manager instead.
I wish he still would have when you put it like that. Like.
In the chat, I'm waiting for a mass release breaking news update since that seems to be the pattern on the mailbags. I hope not. My God.
Listen, no.
Those days are over.
No.
We're crossing our fingers here.
We're seeing loads
doesn't.
Of people just going.
We're gonna get a mass hiring press release.
Yeah. Let's put it this way: all of us are hoping that it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, I hope it happens when we're still on the air. Yeah, it's the things that have been going on contract wise this week. It seems from what I've been able to gather that it's mostly a lot of the same stuff that we've been hearing, where Mia Yim is still potentially in the possibility range of going back to WWE. WWE might be interested in bringing back Chelsea Green. That we've got, some people that like are still doing the whole. There's people in AEW that want to leave, but nobody wants to say anything about who they are, so it's probably bullshit. We do know that we got, as far as the hot tags go, we can go and talk about it in this fashion. We did get a return this week of the Good Brothers popping up on Monday Night Raw. Now we got the OC is back, which is interesting, but I will be perfectly honest and say this wasn't on my top echelon of high priorities of people to bring back. There was some good stuff that we saw from them, but I think a lot of stuff ended up being kind of weak.
I think this was the best thing Judgment Day has gotten involved in. They have a fucking team to fight now. This makes sense. The Good Brothers, they got written off of TV. They're probably the only people that got released that can say they were written off of TV. They were thrown into a house by the Undertaker and burned alive. And, they went out defending AJ. They came back defending AJ. This is the right move.
I mean, I can't really say that I'm like super excited to have the Good Brothers back. I mean, I've always been a fan of Karl Anderson's work, and so that's good, but we'll just see how it develops. They're very much at the back end of their careers now, and they're just kind of like a few spot guys. Like, they have their little moves that they'll do together, and they can cut decent promos, but I don't want to expect anything super dynamic or exciting in the ring from them. But the most interesting thing about this deal is that they're both still working with New Japan, or at least they should still be working with New Japan. One of them is a fucking New Japan champion. Karl Anderson is the never openweight champion, and he's defending his title in a couple of weeks' time against Hikuleo at a New Japan show, or at least that's what's being advertised.
So I assume he's going to lose, but I would like him not to. I'd like New Japan to be the real Forbidden Door. I'd like them to be the real company that anyone can work with, because guess what? They're primarily a Japanese promotion. The American promotions can go to them, as it kind of always was. In the past, WWF worked with New Japan. WWE had a relationship with them. I'd like to see that again.
I'm just assuming, of course, that he drops that title and never defends it again.
Go away. Not only do you have no imagination, but then you pull out that.
Let's see what else is going on in the chat here. On that thought, do you think 24/7 guys are going? The Reggie and them, because we haven't seen them in a while. I mean, I don't know.
I think there is a plan in the works. I'm saying I think this is purely speculative on my part. to replace the 24/7 championship with something else, but who really knows? And if you're going to ask me what I would replace it with, obviously the hardcore title.
The hardcore one. Just like not with the 24/7 kind of title.
Yeah, I would replace it with like an actual, gimmick title that isn't defended 24/7, so you don't lose it in catering. Maybe one day you can get back to that, but I'd like to see a real specialty title for a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of what the 24/7 championship could have been, but it's very clear at the very least right now that's not a priority for Triple H. We haven't seen it almost at all. And they keep doing stuff on house shows and whatever, but even the people that have been holding and revolving around that have basically just been there to, Dana Brooke will pop up for like one match on main event or whatever. It doesn't really seem like they're going to be doing too much with a lot of these people. R-Truth and Shelton Benjamin are a tag team now, I guess.
In the sense that they have matches on main event?
As like a tag team. And, that kind of separates a little bit from R-Truth.
They've been flirting with, throwing random teams together on main event. It's still main event. I like the idea that they're getting back to using NXT people on main event as a way to, one, fill out the Hulu content, and two, get the NXT people some more exposure. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's something. People are interested. If I'm looking for the main event results, I saw this past week or the week before, I'm forgetting which one it was. I think it was this week, where people are like, oh my God, Carmelo Hayes is on here and Von Wagner's on here. Like they got more excited than they would for Mustafa Ali and Cedric Alexander and the same group of 5 people or whatever that tend to appear. But I still think that show should just go away. Peter says, never saw Anderson coming back, but it makes sense. Everybody can potentially be swayed with a little bit of cash. Ted DiBiase said it best. Everybody's got a price.
It's so true.
Temporary or temporarily just for that. I wish Impact could strike a deal with WWE again.
I mean, again.
I think
they had one thing with Mickey James coming into the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that a deal. There was a time where I would have wanted to see WWE buy the TNA library because they had Joe and all these people.
I still want them to.
You're no fun and you want everything under one roof, so it's easier for you to find.
Maybe just 2 roofs.
But like, I don't know if I want that anymore.
Let's go to another mailbag question here. And let's see what we got. What happened to Baron Corbin and JBL? Did JBL kidnap him? Yeah, what the hell is happening with this storyline?
That's a great question.
They did this thing that, for anybody who hasn't been watching SmackDown, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, where Baron Corbin is backstage and this limo pops up, and it's very clearly supposed to be JBL. And he gets in and drives off, and there's been no follow-up to it.
I think there will be. I'm still hopeful that there will be. Maybe they're just keeping him off TV because it's like, go away for a while. You need to be rehabbed, and the first part of that is go away so maybe somebody might actually ask a question like this.
I think part of it could have been, we have no plans to use you for Extreme Rules, and we don't really have a feud in mind for you when you come back. But if we take a little bit of time off and we repackage you, we can say that you've been training or you've been studying under JBL or whatever it is that they're going to be going with. And over the course of these past few weeks or this past month or however long it's going to be, that you've like reaccumulated your wealth or whatever the plans they plan on going with here. I'm hoping, and I'm crossing my fingers in a way that I don't even think I need to. I think that Triple H is probably like, yeah, fucking Happy Corbin is stupid. Let's not be Happy Corbin anymore. And that he'll go a little bit more on the JBL side of things and be closer to that character. But maybe the plan is wait a little bit until a bit closer to Crown Jewel, or maybe even after Crown Jewel.
I can see that.
There's plenty of directions I could see them going with, like a JBL Corbin team of sorts, but I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with it, at least for right now. How much do you hate it, Callum?
Give me a W. Give me an H. Give me an ACARES. Who cares?
In my mind, you were doing the motions with your hands.
Yeah, pom poms.
Yep. How do you know I didn't?
That's true. You could have gotten that when you ordered all those bandanas and the cowboy hat and all.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you give it cheerleader Callum Wiggins instead.
We get one more joke in here. It's going to become.
But I don't have that much excitement towards it, just because Corbin has had multiple gimmicks in WWE and none of them have been interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And tying him up with JBL, a guy who I find is one of the most repugnant people in the wrestling business, is not exactly going to make me more enamored towards it.
Fair enough.
You know what's funny is I just assumed that they would go with like the money side of things because of Baron Corbin being like, oh, I'm so rich and everything, and that's, you know, JBL, of course, this is this rich guy and everything. What if the idea is when he comes back, he's just a fucking bigger bully? And that's his whole gimmick now, is that he's more of an ass.
What? Yeah, that's like he's either a bigger bully or he's a blackjack with a giant handlebar mustache.
Oh, dude.
Blackjack Corbin.
Okay,
Blackjack Corbin.
I want to see them do that now, just because that would be totally different if he's blackjack.
No, that's
Corbin.
awful.
Well, he comes back and he brings back. He's the guy that brings back the Brawl for All. We're all excited.
Okay, now here
Golden
we have
gloves.
that one though. Golden gloves.
Yeah,
you can do that. You can do that. That's what I wouldn't hate.
And it's always building towards a match with Bart Gunn at WrestleMania. Yeah, book it, Hunter.
he can come back as Baron Hawk Corbin.
Scissor rig Uncle Ass.
Guy in the chat says, going on backstage, I also think that Scott Steiner would be a great manager in AEW.
No.
I'm very curious, leaving a comment here. Who would you want to see him manage? Because of course, we would assume that we like more of a Braun Breaker connection between them. And that table for three was awful. My God, what a waste. But I want to hear the ideas that you would pitch for Steiner to do that. Steiner math. Great chant that we've gotten this year. As far as other people joining AEW, let's talk about this hot tag. Renee Paquette has joined All Elite Wrestling.
I love her. We just did the Mount Rushmore of on-screen interviewers, and she's the best. And I'm glad that she's somewhere in wrestling. I think this will also free Shivani up to be a play-by-play guy as we move towards, hey, let's just stick JR on Rampage. So I think that that's good for Shivani. And Renee's so good at her job, and she brings so much personality. So thumbs up.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with bringing Renee Paquette into your organization if you have a space available for her. She's full of personality. She's going to allow her character to be somewhat of a focal point without detracting from the wrestlers that she's interviewing. It'll be interesting when she finally interviews Moxley at some point, because that will just be a nice interaction, because everyone they won't hide or distract from the fact that they're married, they have a kid, so they'll play into that side of things. They could use her as a device for feuds with Moxley going forward as well, especially with MJF. I imagine at some point she's going to have to interview MJF, and he's going to go to town on her in terms of just like riling her up, and so in order to rile John up, and so that'll be a lot of fun. It's an excellent inclusion, an excellent upgrade for the broadcast too.
I think the MJF thing is probably coming in the very near future. With Moxley, I want it to be right after he agrees to do a death match, and she just walks up to him with a microphone like, what the fuck are you doing? No, like, and then, you get that little banter there, because it's been, openly spoken about that she's Not a fan of him doing those. So I think that'll be fun.
Realistically, like that she's like, I don't like my husband to, be gushing blood all the time. God damn it, John, what are you doing? Yeah, I want to hear that camaraderie between the two of them, because at the very least it'll be something different. If she is interviewing Ricky Starks, he's just gonna cut a promo. If she interviews Matt Hardy, he's just gonna talk about Private Party, or he's gonna talk about whatever he's gonna talk about. But if she interviews Moxley, he could be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna beat Hangman Page and whatever like that. By the way, what do you want to get for dinner later on? You think of burgers? Or like they could just kind of have one of those discussions too. And I think that's where you can have some more fun with, obviously, what we were talking about with our Mount Rushmore of having personality behind the broadcast team, letting them just be people instead of robots.
It's so important.
123 in the chat says, are you going to speak about the Tony Khan situation, that interview, the Ariel Helwani one? I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah. Can we talk a little bit about this if we have capacity?
Yeah, I mean,
so
Ariel Helwani had said the interview that he did with Tony Khan was one of the most frustrating and not fun interviews that he's ever had, and you can tell that he's upset that Tony Khan didn't talk about a lot of the things that he had asked him. But even though I can understand why, I am also kind of thinking, would you really expect him to talk about things that are like ongoing legal issues?
Here's where I stand on it, and again, I'm going to probably leap on. I know I use these guys a lot as a beacon of sense in pro wrestling, but this is the kind of take the voice of wrestling took on this, and I share a lot of their sentiments. Ariel Helwani is well within his rights to be frustrated about that interview, because he did ask, and he is well within his rights to ask a load of those questions to Tony Khan, in the same way that Tony Khan is well within his rights to not say anything about that stuff if that is his proclivity to do so. But it does mean that Ariel can be frustrated and say, yeah, I didn't like the interview because I didn't get anything out of him. But in the same token, you can't then metaphorically spend an hour and a half sucking Triple H's dick in another interview and then expect people to not call you out on being a biased reporter, which I think it's a big thing to throw out there. But I think if the shoe fits, wear it. And he is a biased WWE reporter. And I think that he went after Tony Khan because any good journalist should go after Tony Khan and ask those questions about CM Punk and what's going on with the Elite and why are they suspended and how long are they going to be suspended for, and ask about all these other stuff about Cody and all this other stuff, because that is what we as fans would want to hear, and they should be asking these questions about it. Any journalist that wouldn't have an opportunity to talk to Tony Khan and not ask those questions would never be considered, or should never be considered as a journalist. That's not what they do. But on the same token, a real journalist would also ask Triple H, hey, your father-in-law got his dick sucked and that's why he's out of his position in the company. What do you think about all that situation? Or what did you know about what was going on behind the scenes? Because frankly, Triple H, he's not an innocent party. I know he wasn't doing anything in that regard, but he was also like a top executive in the company where it was happening. And
it's a valid question to be asked, yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like a lot of executives knew that stuff, or at least someone must have, quote-unquote, whistle-blown this stuff in order to get it out there. So surely he knew something, especially due to the fact that the guy's his father-in-law. I think if anybody would know more about the circumstances surrounding that and how it's all fell apart and why he's in the position is now in, he will know better than anybody else. Also, probably could have shed more light on the fact that his wife got fired pretty much, or got relieved of her duties for a little while. But so yeah, I think that he's certainly within his right to be frustrated about that interview. But then he's also going way too on the defensive about the fact that I think there is a lot of very valid criticism about the interview that he gave with Triple H and some interviews he's given with people like Nick Khan in the past, where he's given them a lot of softballs. And the guy that he decides to finally throw some hardballs to is an AEW guy. Or the AEW guy, as it were.
So the interview was very frustrating. For me, as someone who was watching it happen, Ariel, for some reason, dropped it after the anniversary episode of Dynamite. 90% of that interview was rehashed of stuff that Tony had said throughout the day in other interviews, including a large portion of it being plugging Dynamite. And yeah, I agree that, was it frustrating that Tony didn't answer? Sure, but also Tony's been very upfront. I cannot answer these questions. There's ongoing litigation. You can ask, but I cannot answer. I do think Tony gave good answers about Action Bronson, several other topics. It seems like he was more frustrated that I didn't get any scoops. And he did from Triple H, because Triple H spun a lot of things, but he did get some new answers from Hunter. He didn't press them on Vince, which I think is an issue, but it's also like, you're never going to win with these tribalistic fans. So I don't know why you put it out there to begin with.
No, that is another side of the issue, is the fact that he decided to go after AEW. Well, AEW people went after him, like the AEW super hardcores went after him, and then he fought back against the AEW hardcores. At the end of the day, he's well within his rights to fight back against people, because some people went on the offense about, well, why did you ask these questions about Tony? Tony shouldn't have to answer these questions. Like, yeah, he should ask these questions, and he should answer. Well, he doesn't necessarily have to answer them, but they should be asked at him in the same way that any news story or sports news in particular, you would ask anyone in these positions.
Yeah.
Those sort of questions.
I mean, like, if you're interviewing Donald Trump right now, are you going to not ask him about the ongoing stuff that's going on? Or if you ask, somebody who just, I don't know, won the Super Bowl, what do you feel about the Super Bowl? Like, it's just, obviously, you're going to ask questions of what people are looking for the answers for. That's the whole point of asking a question.
But I think there is a major issue where people got on him, and unfortunately, this is where I kind of say, bringing up the Triple H thing is in the wrong spirit, because you're only bringing that up, not saying you obviously, Callum, but people only bring that up because you're trying to go, yeah, but what about this? Because it's like, because you're more just upset that you can no longer cling to the mindset that AEW is a utopia. And I think that, like, some people just need to be okay with that being a gone idea now. Like, that's not the case. They have issues like everywhere else, and that's okay. And we should continue to press everyone as hard as possible. But
while I do 100% agree with that, a lot of it is based on the tribalistic nature between these weird people that seem to think that they need to stand by their company by any stretch of the imagination, and the other company is evil and should die one way or another, and that's on both sides of the fence. But I would say that the issue more for me arises from his response to those people that called out the Triple H thing, by basically saying, oh, Triple H had nothing to do with it, or Triple H is an innocent party in all of this. It's like, well, he's still the guy that's running the company. Well, he's not running the company, but he's running the creative of the company, something that his father-in-law used to do before this scandal here. So it's not like he's not unaffected or shouldn't have any opinions on it. And at the end of the day, all Ariel would have to do in those circumstances is just ask Triple H the question.
And then Triple H shoots it down.
And as soon as he shoots it down, says, yeah, I don't want to talk about that, or we're not going to go into details about that, then Ariel's done his job. Obviously, it's the idea that, like in the Khan interview, he could keep bringing it up and pressing him about it, because that's what a good, thorough journalist would do. But at the end of the day, if Triple H doesn't say anything, then that just... The issue then is on him in terms of not answering and not sharing light on it, not on Ariel for not pressing on the question. The fact that the question was never really brought up in any real way of trying to shed light into that situation is the issue.
Yeah, it's hypocritical.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's along the lines of, yes, I think that it is based on a tribalistic nature why these accusations came up against Ariel Helwani about like softballing Triple H, but I also don't, that it's not mutually exclusive. That doesn't mean those criticisms aren't valid.
Yeah,
they should have happened at the time rather than now.
Absolutely.
XOY. How would you pronounce your username? I don't know why. It's XOYNIALEDMC. So I have no clue how I would pronounce that.
By the way, I just want to say I'm glad the three of us look at things with logic.
Yeah. Good things
That's
are
a good
good, and the things that follow suit with that, yeah. They ask, what would you guys be like as WWE or AEW announced team? Could you cast yourselves as who you would be the most like on each show? We've done this in the past.
We've done this. I did this in the past, like the old Raw commentary team. Like,
right.
You were you're Michael Cole, but that was the old, like the really old one. It was like you were Michael Cole, I was Corey Graves, and Rob's always Saxton.
I'm always Saxton.
Right.
It's difficult now because they're two-man booths now in WWE.
Right.
So we couldn't really do that much. AEW one. What are we classing as the AEW announced team?
I would assume it's probably Excalibur, Taz, and Shivani.
Okay. So I would say that it's interesting because I don't know. I assume that
Rob's Taz.
Yeah.
We know that. Let's be honest. We just have to figure out the other two.
Yeah, because I think I'm more Excalibur than Shivani.
That's what I was leaning towards. I think
that's where I would have went.
I would trust that you would be the one that would run down the full stats of, this is a guy that's from another company and this is all the information that you would need to know, much more than I would. And I think that Shivani has a little bit of that Michael Coleism in him. That's probably where we would end up landing.
That's where I would have put it.
Now, obviously, if you throw in like JR and Jericho and all the other people that have been in there, then that gets a little bit muddy. And if on the WWE side of things, the two-man booth, it's different. But yeah, if we go back to like previous time frames and everything too, we talked about commentators a lot this week with the Mount Rushmore, but I think that that's kind of the role that we would fill no matter what the team would be. Like if there's, Jesse Ventura and Vince McMahon and you got Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler and Heenan and Gorilla and all that, like we would kind of fall into the same categories as time goes on.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of, as just a general sense of what we would be like as an announced team, Tony is the main announcer. But I think it's be a quite weird thing because I think you'd be the main announcer and the main guy like kind of hosting and facilitating it, and then me and Rob would be two different play-by-play / color guys, where I would be probably the one that's more calling the technical action and stuff like that, and Rob would be adding more into the story elements.
Yeah, I'd be the one that would be getting in the plugs that, remember everybody, this match is brought to you by KFC.
Yeah. I think in a way we'd all contribute in certain aspects of it, but yeah, that's definitely where Tony lies the most. And then he would be, still be calling action and stuff like that, but then I'd be one that's more doing like, know all the names and the moves, know all the different circumstances involved in that, and then Rob would be the one that would be filling in like the little story beats and the little nuances and stuff like that, which we wouldn't, which I would, because I'd be heavily into the minutiae of just the structure of the match. Rob would just be adding more context to it for the crowd.
And then I think if you take the AEW team from before, where you have it's JR, Excalibur, and Shivani, I think that switches things up and puts Tony specifically for AEW in the JR seat, where he's sort of like, I know what I'm doing, no experience, but nah.
The surly old man.
I don't want to be here. And then
eventually, that's eventually going to happen.
Yeah, and then
we do this long enough.
Oh, it's already a thing for me. I mean, Caroline tells me all the time. She's like, God, you're such an old man. You just complain about things. And I'm like, I was complaining the other day about something about, kids these days with their fucking TikTok dances or whatever. Like, everybody wants a push.
But I definitely think Callum would be Excalibur, and you're very knowledgeable in that way, so you'd be good at it.
I think that means that we need to, at some point, get you to do plugs as fast as Excalibur does.
Oh, I don't know if
he doesn't have the lung capacity for that.
I don't think many people do. That guy, I don't know how he does it, because he's just sort of like, okay, we're going to... It's like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah,
like,
I remember one thing, he plugged, I think it was like 16 matches in 70 seconds, I think. It was just ridiculous.
He ran through something like, it was like, what, Rampage and ROH and the like a pay-per-view or something for Dynamite next week or something, where it was like he ran there like 3 cards over the course of like 60 seconds.
Like he's very good at his job, Ben.
If I was him, I'd reach a point where I'd be like, all right, here for Rampage, read the screen. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore.
See, you're JR.
Yeah. Just, we're calling him Daniel Bryan, damn it. Oh, Alberto Del Rio is brought up in the chat. What do we got here? I like Alberto Del Rio as a wrestler. Have you seen his rebuttal?
No. Moving on.
I think the only thing that Tony wants to see for his rebuttal is Trunks stained shit brown.
That's the only way I want to see him come back into wrestling. It's if he takes a shit in the ring and, you know, accidentally does that. Another comment here. Alberto Del Rio has made himself look really bad. I tried reading some stuff by him, and he sounds very fake and lying.
Really?
Then it sounded like he was threatening to release videos of Paige. Was that a part of the? I didn't read the.
I don't know, because look, guys. I know what I do for a living, but you have to understand how far removed I try to be from this kind of bullshit. Like, it's so funny. I get messages all the time where people will be like, did you see this? And I'm like, no, I don't care enough about this drama. In the case of Del Rio, he's kind of a scumbag. And we've talked about that so much. And it's just like, eh.
Let me see if I can find the, because I know that the guys like Wigo and them had said something about Del Rio the other day, but it was basically the idea of like, you hear this fucker is saying this or something.
I found this, so I don't know whether this is exactly what they're talking about. So during an appearance on the Racing show.
Yeah, that's the same one. Yeah.
Yeah. I was asked about the possibility of joining AEW now that Soraya works there. And he basically says, when it comes to the company AEW, if they want to do business with me, we'll be more than happy to do it. If they don't, again, I'll continue doing what I'm doing right now, producing our show. I have no idea what that is. Taking our company to the next level and work for those major corporations that have given me the opportunity to work for them. So I guess that makes the company feel really good about the fact that he just will openly just walk out and go to the WWE or AEW at the drop of the hat. So that's not up to me. It's just like WWE. It's their decision. Everyone knows the truth. I already talked about it as well. And, you know, I said it. Don't put my name on your lips again, because if you do, I'm going to expose you for what you are. I assume that's referencing
Sage, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have no intention of doing that. I have no intention of entertaining the internet again. I'm pretty sure she doesn't want to do that because we both have a lot of things to lose. She's working. I'm happy that she's working. I'm happy that she moved on with her life, and I do too.
Man, he couldn't have just said that last line. You know, like couldn't have just been, "I'm happy that she's moved on," and I, you know,
he's still talking.
It continues. It continues. You know, I'm working for big corporations, good business. I'm doing well. I have no interest in affecting anyone's life. But as I mentioned months ago, if you dare, you or your family dare to mess up with me again, I will put all those videos. And no, I'm not talking about private or nasty videos. He said, no, the videos of you being you and all the police reports and all that stuff that's out there, that is real. So just stay where you are. Thank you, God, because you have a fantastic job. Enjoy your moment, enjoy your time, and do what you do best, because she's one of the best ones when it comes to performing in the ring. So just leave the past in the past and continue doing what you've been doing in the last 3-4 years, because I'm doing the same and I want things to stay that way. Again, no interest in it affecting anyone's life, but don't mess with me again. And this goes for everybody. Don't mess with me again. And this time I'm going to defend myself and I'm going to show everybody the truth about how things were. So basically, you say, oh, I'm cool. Like, I've moved on, everything else. But if you dare talk to me, I'm going to fucking ruin your fucking life. All that stuff.
So that's the quote that in group chat that Peyton had sent, and then he followed it up with, "What a fucking psycho." And then
one of those guys,
I think it's Wago. It might have been Kaylin that responded with that with, "But you already knew that."
Right? Like, why do people give him the space for this shit? At some point, like, stop doing this.
He's one of those people, like the saying, it's just one of those people that wants everyone to think that he's super normal and he's super cool and chill with everything, and he's really good business and he wants to be working with people, and it's just like, wants to make people think that he's in demand and everyone wants him. And the fact of the matter is, he is just a crazy, I don't say crazy, but he's a very malicious person, it seems. Like, in very, like, he's made it under no subtleties here. He thinks like he's the good guy in all this situation, and there's like, if they say anything negatively about him, he's literally just going to try and expose Saraya and her entire family to the world. Just this guy's crazy. This guy's weird. Hopefully, no company worth their salt will ever work with him again.
I agree. Let's see some of the other things that are in this chat here. Let's see for the literally the letter spelling is fine for the pronunciations. That's fantastic of a casting, Callum, for the stuff we're talking about with the announcers. I could see Tony as Booker T with brutal honesty. Let's start there. I'll start introducing a Fave 5. How did you guys feel about Booker T on NXT?
He was fine. He didn't get as goofy as I thought he would for the first night. He did make a joke about toxic attraction, and Vic played with him there, which I thought was really good.
I'm looking away from my screen at the time, and I'm just like, back to the screen. I'm looking at Caroline. We're just kind of like on the couch, and I start cracking up because the joke was, for anybody that's interested, there she is, my beautiful wife. The joke was, Vic Joseph says he's so glad that there is a different commentator sitting next to him right now when Toxic Attraction is coming out, because his previous commentator partner, Wade Barrett, would have flipped the desk over if he stood up.
I love that.
Which I immediately went, oh, wow, that's a joke. That's a good line. And I thought that was the best line of the night.
I thought Booker followed it up well with the, I'm sorry, what did you say about Wade? Oh, he's got good eyesight, though. That's very good.
The favourite thing that I saw of Booker T, again, I didn't really pick up too much, which is probably a good thing in the grand scheme of things. Like, he didn't over egg things too much, at least first night out. And that may be because he had no idea who he was watching. But I think that the funniest part was when, I think it was Grayson Waller's match with Ilya Dragunov, he does the Harlem sidekick. Like the giant, lifting kick that Booker T would do. Booker just stone faced, it sounded like he was stone faced, just deadpan, just says, "What the hell was that?" And it's just like, and he's just like, oh, it's just like, I don't know whether he didn't recognize his own move or he was just super angry about it and just was not giving Grayson Waller the time of day. I think a lot of them, actually, there are a few instances of people just doing Booker T mannerisms and poses, probably just as a maybe more general rib about the fact that he's now on commentary.
In the chat also, who is William Regal then hitting on Excalibur if Callum is Excalibur? Who's going to be the William Regal that's hitting on
that's if anybody was if anybody looked at me like William Regal looked at Excalibur, that would be.
I mean, that's all I'm looking for in life, right?
Yeah. I want someone to treat me like a naughty little crumpet.
Yeah, a scrumptious little something or other like that. This made me crack up. Guy in the chat says, "What if Del Rio has a gimmick where he craps himself? Will you like him then?"
Well, if he does it more than once, I mean, that's overkill. It's like Droz, oh, he's gonna shit.
No, he needs to just do it one time. He needs to have a guest spot where he takes a body slam or something. He gets up and he's just like, oh, man, I just shit myself, and runs away. And then, then we never see him again.
We need just speaking of William Regal thing, we need some sort of segment every single week where Caroline tries to do her best William Regal to Excalibur thing to you, Tony.
Oh, I'm down for that.
Tries to cut or something along those lines to describe you.
We'll have to figure that out, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go into another mailbag question that we have here. Let me bring that up because for some reason I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Which return out of the most recent ones do you think is the best, and which one is the worst? Peter had said that he, after 2 weeks, was already not into the Karrion Kross character anymore. So we got, over these recent returns and everything, we got Dakota Kai, we got Karrion Kross, Hit Row, Good Brothers. Who else we got in there?
Wyatt, obviously.
Yeah, Wyatt.
Yeah. I guess you can class the Io Sky because she'd been injured for a while and came back.
Yeah, Io Dakota.
Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
Candice LeRae.
how, in terms of like the actual question for this, like, are we just talking about the returns themselves, or how excited we are for the people that did return?
I don't remember too many of like the specific returns to be like Hit Row's to return. I can't tell you what happened.
They just came out in the episode of SmackDown.
Yeah, but I can tell you that as far as like, doing anything beyond that point, the return for Hit Row has been one of the absolute least for me. Cause I'm like, I'm not really feeling it.
No, I completely agree. It's just, it doesn't work without Swerve. Because they don't have a focal point, and they're just three guys, two guys and a girl that have absolutely no real star power or presence about them.
Sounds like they need a pizza place.
I'm gonna go 3 for 3 with Hit Row because they came back, and I'm excited for them to be back. I do think, like, same thing with Maximum Male Models, we need mid-card tag teams because that's how you build a division. You have to have people in a lot of different spaces, but they're just sort of there. And as a bonus, just because we all said Hit Row, I'll also say I'm a bit worried about Candice. Like, I feel like Candice is very quickly going to be just another person on the roster, and I think she's too talented for that, but I also understand that sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, she hasn't really accomplished too much yet. Obviously, she hasn't just come in and won a championship or whatever.
It's been a couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt when it comes to somebody like Candice, or even, to be honest, Johnny Gargano hasn't had the best stuff that's happening, but I know how good they are, so I'm hoping that'll just kind of balance out.
Yeah.
Whereas Hit Row, I'm like, look, BFAB had 2 matches and they were terrible. And Ashanti is good for like a mid-card kind of act. I don't know what his ceiling really is. Top Dollar, I think, is kind of just a guy doing a Rock impression sometimes, and then an impression of this person, and then an impression of that person. He doesn't strike me as a WWE superstar. At least not yet. Maybe, things will change. But I would say probably Hit Row's my least favorite when it comes to that. Some other people, Peter says both excitement and return. I have my reservations about believing that the Bray Wyatt stuff is going to work out as great as everybody else says, but at least the return was super cool. So I know that if we go specific return, that's probably the best one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In terms of just like the actual return event, that is the best one, and that's probably followed far away. That's followed by, I'd say, Dakota and Io's.
Yeah, probably.
That was really cool.
That was because that was the kind of the catalyst of all this thing.
Yeah.
Worst in terms of just overall return. I mean, say we were like, the Gargano thing is interesting because they just like had his music play on a random episode of Raw just after a break, and he just comes out, and some people find that really cool. But it's like, it doesn't really fill you with a huge amount of confidence they think that he's a big star because they didn't build it up in any way. But a lot of the ones recently are very like him, Candice, Hit Row. They're just, okay, we have match lined up and this person comes out that hasn't been here before. That's kind of a lot of the returns recently.
Which is okay, because I think you can get away with that with Candice and Johnny because everything they do is wrestling based. So that's all right. With Hit Row, I felt like there are more characters, so you're going to need more than just, okay, go squash some job guys. But I'd also say I'm a bit worried that Strowman's probably going to fall down the card real quick.
I would say that in the most cases, obviously not all of them, like some of them I would have been happy to see come over to AEW, but the majority of people that has been signed back to WWE are people that I didn't really want to see in AEW.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I did not want to see Karrion Kross or Braun Strowman or Bray Wyatt in AEW. So it's better for me that they're in WWE. I think WWE will use them in a way that they will want to be used, and they won't impact on anything else negatively in AEW. They are WWE people.
100%.
Gargano and Candice is a different thing, but like I understand that they would want to work under Triple H considering the way they were treated in NXT. So I don't blame them for that.
On this Bray Wyatt discussion, here's something in the hot tags that I wanted to talk about. People are suggesting this, and I don't really know if I buy all that much into it, but I want to see what you guys say too, and everybody in the chat as well. This Wyatt 6 idea, people are suggesting specific people to play these parts where they're going, hey, Joe Gacy is going to be Huskus, Grayson Waller is going to be Mercy the Buzzard, Alexa Bliss is Sister Abigail, Rambling Rabbit, I've heard, this is where I think of, like, okay, everything falls apart, because everybody's like, oh, Rambling Rabbit is Eric Rowan. No, Rambling Rabbit is Bo Dallas. Oh, no, The Fiend is Bo Dallas. No, that's what... Aleister Black is going to come in and do that. I didn't get the feeling that they were actually going to be continuing characters in that way, where they'd have, like, Gacy is now Huskus the Pig Boy. I just got the impression that people were popping up for that because it would be a cool visual, and then maybe down the line they might pop up again, but it's just going to be whoever can fill in that role that night. I didn't think that that was going to be like a faction. Did you guys?
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. Wyatt 6 is a trademark that Wyndham now owns. And I think people got excited because they saw the characters, and the Bray Wyatt character does this to people where the fantasy booking just goes fucking wild, right? Like, remember when for years it felt like people were like, oh, well, Liv Morgan's going to be Sister Abigail. And it's like, nobody said this ever. And people just get so excited and in their own head about these kinds of things. I don't think the Wyatt 6 is going to be a stable. I will say there's some fuel on that fire, because Meltzer said something in this week's Observer about, oh, well, they wanted Malachi to be a part of something with Wyatt, like some kind of a group. We know that they shared the Uncle Howdy or Uncle Harper trademarks this week, and I think that's a very nice tribute to Luke Harper. But I don't think that we need to get excited about a faction, because I don't know if I want to see them touch the Wyatt family, because the family was perfect and they managed to screw that up. So do we really want to see it?
I'm not opposed to the idea of a Wyatt-driven faction, largely due to the fact that it may mean that Wyatt doesn't wrestle as often. I think that's also part of the Wyatt thing, the whole Wyatt character that's always kind of bugged me a little bit, is the fact that both as the Fiend and as the cult leader guy, he should never have been going for the World Championship. That isn't his motivation. It shouldn't be his character's motivation. His character's motivation, at least with the cult leader gimmick, was to just bring people into his flock and just have people do his bidding for him. Like, he should have been, I don't say managing a guy, but like be like corrupting people that would then go up for championships that he could then just have them lay down for him, and he just wins them that way rather than him having to fight his way to win world titles. And as the Fiend, his character should have just been, I've targeted this person and my mission is to destroy this person, not to, I'm going to destroy this person and then pick up this leather belt that they're holding at the same time as well, because that seemingly has some meaning towards me. So I could see him building a faction of people that can kind of fulfill those different roles, like have a tag team, have a big like guy to be his top champion, or like his top champion prospect, definitely have at least one, if not two women to be the people going after the women's titles, and then him being the puppet master, basically controlling all of them. And because I think even though I don't want to see a return directly back to the cult leader, I thought that was his strongest character.
Same here.
So I'd want something that's maybe just a bit of an evolution on that. And the Wyatt 6, if that is something they decide to go with, could be a good way of doing it. I mean, as Rob says, it is probably just all a lot of rampant speculation about the number 6, and then assuming that there's going to be a faction of 6 people, and the different characters because of the fact that they were human people mirroring the the Firefly Funhouse characters on that show. There's people streaming, okay, those are just representatives of who the different characters will end up being. I don't think it will go that far, but I can envision a faction that Bray's at the heart of, because I think Bray is such a star in the eyes of the WWE fans that an association with him will immediately raise the star power of the people that he associates with. So if you were to put, again, just spitballing, I have no idea who they would end up putting in, but say they were to put Karrion Kross as like the guy who he essentially, this is Wyatt's hand-chosen champion, him and Scarlett, and then that he's part of the faction, Karrion Kross immediately becomes more impressive in the eyes of people. Same way with Liv Morgan, even though she's just been the women's champion, I think people will take her more seriously or think about her more credibly if she's attached to Bray Wyatt.
I think the way to go about that, and I think you guys probably would end up agreeing too, is to keep them separate from those characters, though, because those are supposed to be aspects of Bray Wyatt.
Yeah,
the Rambling Rabbit thing, for the most part, seems like that was when he was teaming up with Matt Hardy. And then you got Sister Abigail, of course, was like the character from the start, and you got Huskus the Pig Boy as Husky Harris, and you know, they know with the whole Waylon Mercy thing that's Mercy the Buzzard. I wouldn't want to see Grayson Waller turn into like, okay, he's Mercy the Buzzard on the main roster. I want him to be Grayson Waller. You know, I don't want Joe Gacy to be Huskus the Pig Boy as an aspect of Bray Wyatt. Why don't they just have him as an underling and he's Joe Gacy, and, you know, Schism in the Dyad, or like a, you know, basically the henchman of Bray Wyatt in like a different kind of way. I think that Liv Morgan shouldn't at this point become Sister Abigail. She should just be Liv Morgan. And I don't know if I really like the idea of her being a part of it anyway, but if she is, I want her to still be in that kind of way, Liv Morgan.
Yeah, I'd say I think that the whole faction idea could work. And the benefit of that is also because all of those people would be the ones doing the week-to-week wrestling and serving the bidding of Bray Wyatt, is that you can then make matches where Bray is actually involved, special occasions, and big draws. If like he only wrestles every 2 or 3 months, like a pay-per-view every 2 or 3 months, that match becomes a bit more must-see because he doesn't wrestle all the time. So I'm super on board with the idea of a faction surrounding Wyatt. But yeah, I don't want them to just be, because that's taking it too far. Because that's essentially just saying that Bray is so over that we're going to raise the stock of all these other people by just essentially giving them different aspects of Bray Wyatt's personality or characters. It's like, oh, Liv Morgan, no, she's much more over as Abby the Witch, and but no, I think a faction led by Wyatt is the good way to go though.
Question in the chat from Guy: can you do a Wrestling in 2010 series like you did with 2001: A Wrestling Odyssey based on the 10-week Monday Night War?
I don't know if I didn't hear that. I mean, like, clearly,
what in the world were you saying right there, Rob?
You just wanted the mic for a little bit, it's fine.
Yeah,
am I dying again? What's happening?
No, it sounded like you're deep throating the microphone or something.
Jesus. All right.
You're deep throwing that one there, or Hawani was with Triple H.
I think we established that maybe if that was Excalibur, he might be the Wally Regal.
Might be. No, I don't know.
Oh, microphone, you scrumptious little crumpet, you.
I don't know if anybody has any major interest in, like, Callum, would you like to sit down and get all the information about the 10-week Monday Night War from 2010?
What war? Fucking like they would like a bit of like snot at the end of their show, pretty much to TNA for those 10 weeks. It's not a war. It's not even like
a skirmish.
Like, calling that
a tickle fight.
Yeah, it's a tickle fight. It's someone like prodding someone with a 10-foot pole. It's like, oh, I'm annoying you a little bit, aren't I? And then the person on the other end of it breaking every part of that 10-foot pole into small, tiny pieces. And then the other one said, okay, we'll go away now and we'll go back to Thursdays or whatever. Just, yeah, that's an embarrassment of a war. Like, fucking hell, at least at least like do be the Alamo or something. Like they could have had the good grace to die because of that, rather than just stick around, just retreat immediately.
Another question is, did you hear the rumor of Eva Marie?
Oh, that's not a rumor. That's her tweeting and
that's her. Yeah,
that's her stirring the pot. Yeah. Like she put out that gif of her throwing a Lily doll towards the bin and it looking like it's going to fall in, and then it cuts away. It's like either she is coming back, and God help us if that is the case, or she's just having fun. And if she's having fun, then good on her.
I think that she saw an opportunity to cash in on people are going to tweet about me if I do this, and people will go, oh my God, is she going to come back? And yeah, she's marketing. I don't think that she's got anything to do with it. Here's the trademark thing. Let's go into trademark, just completely random. AEW trademarked Varsity Club. You guys think that they're going to do with that?
Well,
expand the Varsity Blondes.
No, they're going to expand the Varsity Athletes because Mark Sterling owns the trademark for Varsity, so the Varsity Blondes can no longer exist. I don't know why they suddenly want to trademark the name of Kevin Sullivan's stable from 1988, but let's see where they go with it.
Maybe they'll send the gun club to college and they'll be the Varsity Club or something. Let's see what else we got on the TV side of things. We talked a little bit about the Monday Night Raw stuff when it comes to the OC, but we've got a new United States champion. Seth Rollins beat Bobby Lashley after Brock Lesnar returned and beat the living piss out of him and set up something for the future, to the point that they did the thing that they do a lot of the times, which was in a post-match interview, Bobby Lashley's like, yeah, I'll address Seth Rollins in the future, but first I have to deal with the Brock Lesnar thing, which is essentially WWE's way of saying, yeah, the Rollins thing's over with. We're just going to go with this Lesnar and fucking forget about it. No. We talked a little bit about the idea of like, what would you like to see going forward when it comes to that on the Darkcast, but how do you feel about the new United States champion?
Well, he's over as fuck, and they need a top champion, and Seth Rollins has done this already in 2018, and that was his best run where he was the IC champion. I thought that Rollins never got any better than that. So I like it.
I think he's a very good choice to be United States champion. Again, it's a case of Triple H is one of the best things Triple H is doing as his tenure in Crave is rehabbing the status of the mid-card championships, which had literally fallen into complete disrepair in the last few years of Vince McMahon's tenure. So they're restoring it by putting it on the top names like Lashley, Gunther, Rollins, and having them defend it often and in good matches. I'm completely in agreement with your perspective in that this is just, okay, is this good enough for Cody now? It's like, yeah, we're not having you fight for the world title anymore because we got a Brahma Bull coming in. But United States title? I mean, Dusty held a United States title. You want to win a United States title, right, for Dusty? And it's, yeah, that's the substitute. That is the Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens consolation prize to the Goldberg Brock Lesnar actual draw main event.
I think that's guaranteed at this point to happen, as long as, of course, Cody Rhodes is able to return in time for that, where they just go follow up with that and you take the title for him, and then we can give you a strong United States title reign, and then, hey, if that works out well, then we'll talk about revisiting the idea of you being world champion and whatever. But and I'm not opposed to that if there wasn't the idea of just, we've got the lingering question of who beats Roman, and at this point, who other than Cody Rhodes is somebody who I really want to see do that. But
I think that if we're going to do the whole Cody gets the US title, at least 90% of Cody's look and aesthetic and everything is America based, so they can at least play off of that. But I still wish he was coming back for the world title.
I think the story they could tell, and again, it's not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but you have Cody come back, beat Rollins for the title, WrestleMania. Like, you could tell the whole story of him coming, maybe not being an entrant in the Royal Rumble, but coming into the Royal Rumble when Rollins is in it and just clotheslining him over the top, clotheslining them both over the top at the same time. They brawl to the back. You get the hot angle restarted there. You build it to WrestleMania. You have Cody win the title there. And then you still have Cody being built up beyond that point to fight Roman at SummerSlam. But you then, in the process of it, you have him drop the title to, say, Solo Sikoa, with Roman getting involved. And so you can put the title on Solo. So Solo could be a strong United States champion, and then you could have Cody win the world title from Roman. So there are ways around doing it by having Cody win that title there and then eventually win the world title a couple of months later.
And I'll say this, if you're trying to rehab the legacy of your belts, putting a major program like that for the US title could be a very good move.
Yeah, I have no problem with that for the actual prestige of the title. It's a good step forward. But it does also just raise the inevitable question, which we brought up for years and years at this point. Who is actually going to beat Roman Reigns for the title, and when is that going to happen?
Tomorrow. Let's go to NXT.
It should have been a month ago. It should have been a month ago with Drew McIntyre, but we digress on that stuff.
The NXT side of things, I don't think that there was anything that really stood out to me. Anything you guys want to talk about?
Segments are awful. That's what I want to talk about. The fucking these weird, like, okay, we're gonna do an angle in the hospital now, and Roderick Strong says, "Hey, you got this, guys. Diamond Mine forever." What? Why? Why are these being shot like really poor Nickelodeon teen drama sketches? Like, what is happening?
I think the most the thing that I took away most from NXT is not a particular segment in general, but it's the overarching integration with the main roster, because you had Sonya Deville come into NXT and basically align herself back with Mandy Rose again, and you're going to have Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez both be on Raw and SmackDown to decide, like, pick your poison opponents for each other. You're going to have there's going to be a mystery person that comes in for Tony D'Angelo to take on
Stacks.
I mean, that's their gimmick for this next week. Is we've got like 5 people that are coming in with this question mark of who's going to be from the main roster. And
gee, I wonder why. It's not like they're going up against an AEW World Championship match or anything.
But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff on that end of it. I think just for overall segments, the thing that made me laugh the most was apparently Kiana James wants to buy Chase University. Or at least the land that Chase University is on top. Yeah. But the thing about that is that it reminds me of a, did we ended up watching this, didn't we, Rob? For part of the, we're bringing up like 2001. We watched Women of Wrestling Unleashed, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And there was a segment in it where there was this woman that comes out and says something along the lines of, I can't remember what the name of her was, but like she bought another wrestler's ranch. And it's just like she was a headmistress and a headmistress character, and there was a cowboy that she bought the ranch off of. I'm just looking at that and I'm just thinking, why is Kiana James rich all of a sudden?
Yeah, she went from being like a business manager to being rich enough to buy a university. Yeah,
exactly.
Because she manages her business well. What's the issue here?
I mean, I like it because it's campy and fun. Like, I don't mind that for like a lower mid-card feud. That is totally fine. Especially because also part of this lower mid-card feud is the fact that Thea Hale is constantly slamming Robert Stone.
Yeah. She hit him with a back body drop on Tuesday. When's the last time you saw a back body drop used effectively in wrestling? I popped for that.
But yeah, other than that, there wasn't really anything else that's exciting for NXT. But you know, they're building up towards Halloween Havoc. I'm sure something cool will happen there.
You guys have any standouts you'd like to see fill these roles as Cameron Grimes' tag team partners and the Cora opponent, Roxanne opponent?
Ted DiBiase Jr. No, I think Cameron Grimes' tag team partner. I'm trying to think, like who would be on who on the main roster vibes with Cameron Grimes.
I kind of feel like it might end up being Hit Row. I wouldn't put them in that spot, but I feel like it should probably be a tag team, and it's not like the Street Profits can fill that role because Montez is injured, and I don't think the Usos aren't going to do it, or
Is Montez like for real injured? Oh, you know what? The New Day. Yeah, you're right.
That's right. The New Day. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah, that would work out for them. In terms of who Cora and Roxanne's opponents are going to be, I mean, they realistically should be people that both Roxanne and Cora can beat. Like, it shouldn't be, obviously, it's not going to be like Bianca Belair or Bayley or Ronda or anything like that. But it's probably going to be from the SmackDown one will probably be Xia Li.
And it should get her back on NXT.
See, I'm thinking Shotzi might be the one that Cora picks for Roxanne to fight.
Well, would she choose a heel for Roxanne to fight?
No, it's the other way around. Roxanne's picking a baby
Cora
from SmackDown.
I'm switching it up. I keep getting them. Yeah, I think it's going to be Cora Jade against Shotzi. And I think that, I mean, they could have potentially gone with the Natalya thing since she beat Cora before, but I think that Shotzi's going to play into that whole we're like the punk girls and I'm a babyface now, and Shotzi can lose. They teased the Rhea thing for Cora picking against Roxanne.
Which is really weird. I would like it to be Rhea, but then Rhea has to beat her. You know?
Yeah, and she's got to pretty much wipe the floor with her. She's like 3 feet taller than she is.
I mean, there's nothing necessarily super wrong with having the main roster people beating them. It just obviously makes the match of Halloween Havoc a little bit less impactful when it's loser against loser. But if they are 30 people for the main roster, realistically, in most cases, you should try and tell the narrative that people on the main roster are better than people in developmental. But so
I mean, who is there that Roxanne can beat? That's a heel that would probably make sense for that. Like
Tamina, probably.
She's babyface.
Is she?
Yeah.
But no one
Who's paying attention?
That's like one of those ones where okay, so she turned heel on this show. It's like, okay, that doesn't matter. No one actually cares but would I
kind of think Natalya might be the one that Cora picks, because it might be like,
we already had Natalya versus Roxanne.
Then we had it against Cora.
Oh yeah, it was against Cora.
And either way, Natalya's on SmackDown.
Well, they didn't say that she had to pick from Raw, right?
They did say she had to pick from Raw.
She did? Oh, I thought she just said that she was going to be...
She said she was going to Raw to find Roxanne's opponent.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about talking to Tony sometimes is you realize he hasn't fully watched every bit of these shows.
Sometimes those little things just make me go like, you know what? I think it's more a better idea for me to just pay attention to something else at that moment, or I'll be in the other room like washing a dish, and I'm like, this dish is more entertaining than this match it's on.
I think you could see Cora pick someone, honestly, like Bayley. She worked with Bayley to get her healed. If you want to get the number, maybe, because Bayley's a big name, and it's Bayley returning to NXT to beat a plucky, babyface like she used to be. I think it could be Bayley. Or someone within the Damage Control faction.
In terms of the
Stacks one,
the Stacks and Tony D'Angelo thing, I think it needs to be someone that's going to be replacing Stacks. I think the story, and maybe I'm wrong about this one, so I'm willing to be proven wrong, but the story seems to be that Tony's putting a hit on Stacks.
But he said you better be ready for war, which a lot of people are taking for some reason as Bronson Reed coming back.
It could be. He might be done with New Japan because he's had his match with Okada now.
And they didn't say it's going to be from the main roster.
Yeah, it's just the other ones are like, oh, it could be from anybody from the roster or whatever. This one, he just said, I've got somebody that's going to fight you. So it could be a return.
It could be.
I could see it being Bronson. If it was going to be from the main roster, my guess would be Braun. Like, I'm just going to send this monster to beat the shit out of you.
Well, why would Braun do that?
Because he likes money.
I guess there could be. I'm just trying to think if there's anyone that has that Italian American heritage that could do it.
Pizza dude.
Oh yeah, that pizza guy.
You know, I would honestly, I would stop watching wrestling. I might even leave that job. I'm tired of this.
Let's see what else we got here. Let's talk to some AEW and kind of round that out after. Actually, let's get back into this, another mailbag question. I keep forgetting about going back to some of those. Where do we leave off on one of these? Which Marvel film is your favorite? Which is your least favorite? Callum hasn't seen too many of them, but I think you probably would say that your favorite that you had seen was Guardians, right?
It's definitely really high up there, Guardians of the Galaxy. I'd say at the moment, from the ones that I have seen, Guardians is probably still number one, and then the next one would be Spider-Man Far From Home. I watched that recently, and I thought that was very good.
Do you have a least favorite that you've seen? Do you have a least favorite that you've seen?
Oh, least favorite. Sorry, missed that for a second. I think. Oh, what's the least favorite? Iron Man 2.
That was Peter's pick. Was Iron Man 2. His favorite being Infinity War, I think.
Yeah, I'm not a super fan with that one. Is there any other ones that I've seen that didn't? I haven't seen a lot of the recent ones. I'm sure one of the more recent ones, like if I saw, again, because I can only go based on reviews and stuff like that, but I assume if I saw Thor, Love and Thunder, or Captain Marvel or something like that, I probably would, or Ant-Man, or one of the Ant-Man movies, I probably would dislike that more.
What about you, Rob?
Best is not Far From Home, No Way Home. I love Tobey Maguire. Then that was that.
Oh, that's No Way Home. That's the one I saw. Sorry, I got confused with Far From Home and No Way Home.
Yeah, No Way Home is my favorite. Tobey Maguire. It was awesome, and that whole movie just like made me happy during a time where I wasn't that happy. So that's my favorite. And least favorite. Am I gonna get an argument on Eternals here?
So I have not finished the last episode of She-Hulk, and I also haven't seen Werewolf by Night yet. I'm gonna try to watch that pretty soon. But I've ranked everything that I've seen from the MCU, from the TV shows outside of. I didn't bother to rank like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. seasons or. Actually, I didn't even watch the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I didn't bother to rank Agent Carter or the one shots, but the Disney Plus shows and the movies. And the only thing that I couldn't watch was Ms. Marvel. I watched 1.5 episodes of that, and I was like, I just hate this. I can't watch it. And now that I watched a couple like new Rockstars breakdowns of some of the episodes, I'm like, oh, good. I didn't waste any time on that because it seems like it was pointless for it to all end with, maybe she's a mutant or something. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's it. But if you're talking movies, Eternals is easily the worst for that. That movie is just trash in so many ways because it should have been a Disney Plus show. They tried to cram too much in there, and then too many other Disney Plus shows probably could have been better off as a movie. But if you go to fanboysanonymous.com, you will see one of the main things that I perpetually bump up is the full tier list ranking of everything in the MCU that I've got, the S through F tier for everything. And currently right now, the one that I have listed as number 1, although it's kind of, to be perfectly honest, the top 4 are kind of tied, which are Iron Man, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame. Because they're all just great in so many different ways. So it's hard for me to pick between those. But I think if you showed most people, if you said like, okay, this is a movie, what do you think about it? I'd probably show them Iron Man. But I think Captain America, Winter Soldier is probably the better movie. And then I might not be marking out like crazy with Infinity War and Endgame. So that's just like the fan in me just being like, Captain America's holding Mjolnir. Oh my God. I really want to do some kind of a deep dive on the MCU or something. Because, man, Fanboys Anonymous stuff is so much better than some of this wrestling stuff that we do every once in a while. But we got into chat going on. Dexter Loomis teams with Cameron Grimes again, like the Bachelor party scene. Eternals is the Eva Marie of the MCU. I don't know. Is Eva Marie better than that? Maybe.
Yeah, I would say so.
And I know you disagree, but for me, the best show will always be WandaVision. That was so much fun. Like that was such a fun show, and then I think some of these shows now are getting to the point of overkill. But like WandaVision as the first was really, really good.
I don't know if She-Hulk sticks the landing, but I right now would put She-Hulk as my favorite of the.
Really, for someone who's such a big Marvel guy, I've heard so many people crap on that show. I was surprised that you would say that.
That's because they don't know what She-Hulk was all about in the past. Like, I mean, everybody wants variety, just the same as everything else, but then they don't want the variety that they don't like. So even though Ms. Marvel wasn't a show for me, it wasn't supposed to be for a 30-something-year-old white guy. Like it was supposed to be for teenage girls, and the idea of like fangirling out and having a completely different culture and everything. So it's a different genre, and She-Hulk is a different type of character. So it's kind of like when you watch, if you watch NWA and you really like the Southern wrestling, you're going to really connect with it. And if you're somebody like me who likes more WWE, then that's not for you, and it doesn't work the same. But She-Hulk is silly, and it's a parody of itself and everything, like it should be, and it's funny. I do agree with Michael in the chat. You should recast the MCU with wrestlers. That has been something that I actually did an article one time for Bleacher Report a few years ago, where it was like, who would I cast in the MCU with roles that haven't been cast yet? And I had put, if I'm remembering correctly, I think I had Roman Reigns for Beta Ray Bill was one of them. And like a few other things like that I thought was really fun. So if you browse like, Bleacher Report, Anthony Mango, Fancast MCU or something like that, I'm sure that there's probably going to pop up on Google. But I want to go down that rabbit hole at some point. And as you mentioned, that's a really good pick your poison topic to do that crossover for. If you're a fan of Fanboys Anonymous and you're a fan of Smark Out Moment, you want to do some kind of crossover stuff like that beyond just, hey, The Rock's in this thing or something, then yeah, that's definitely something I would like to do in the future.
How do you feel about The Rock essentially being like, I really want to be a creative consultant on the DCEU? He is really into like, I want to take this franchise and this whole body of work basically and elevate it.
I am withholding judgment until I see Black Adam, because Black Adam is not one of my favorite things, but some of the stuff I've seen so far seems kind of cool, and some other things seem like, hey, you know what, that's not really Black Adam. So I don't know if having him as a creative force is going to be one of those like, no, don't do those things to somebody else. But so far, the one major thing that he's done, I'm a fan of, which I can't really say because it's a spoiler.
Yeah, I will say, just as someone who is unfamiliar with a lot of comic book culture and lore in terms of certain characters, like I watched the trailer for the Black Adam movie and thought that it was one of the coolest trailers I've ever watched. Like, it made me super excited to watch the movie, even if I had no intention of ever watching Black Adam. But I'm actually, I might check it out as soon as I possibly can, because it just strikes me as like, this is a really cool villain story.
At the very least, then in the future, maybe we'll end up doing a fan tracks. I mean, I got my ticket already for when it comes out opening night. I got my Wakanda Forever ticket already. That looks like that's going to be cool. And we got the follow up with the. I would have a heel Rock as Thanos. That'd be kind of interesting. He does like the bounce off the ropes and then does that little like kind of shimmy that he does before the people's elbow before he does the snap. That'd be interesting. Guy
not wrestling related, but The actor who played Hagrid in the Harry Potter franchise just died.
Ah, really?
Yeah,
I knew that before we started recording. I assume you already read it. Yeah, Robbie Coltrane.
Robbie Coltrane. Yeah. He was Valentin Zukovsky in Goldeneye. And that sucks. He was cool.
Yeah, he was a very funny comedian and comedy actor for a long time in the UK before becoming more notable with James Bond and Harry Potter series. Like very, very like huge guy. Like he was obviously big as Hagrid, but they obviously played that, but he was huge anyway. But yeah, it's a real shame to lose someone of his character and just overall acting ability. He was very, very good.
If you are interested in knowing more about Robbie Coltrane and Goldeneye and The World's Not Enough, then check back on the other Fanboys Anonymous podcast we did for that with the Review to a Kill series, where we got super deep into some of those things, and that sucks. That's a shame. In the chat, we got, what would cause you to quit watching or covering wrestling or fanboy stuff? Fanboy stuff, I'm not going to stop because there's too many good things out there. They never really are going to reach a point where I stop watching movies, because if you don't like the superhero movies, then there's just regular movies and regular TV shows and all. But the wrestling stuff, I mean, I quit before in 99 or 2000. I don't remember exactly when I had quit, but I think it was late 99. I know at the very least that I had still collected the magazines when it was the 99 Royal Rumble, because I know I still have that. I had that one for a while. Not anymore. Tossed that a while ago. But I mean, now there's been times where I've thought about quitting watching. I know Rob said a minute ago that he would quit watching if the pizza guy popped up.
I mean, realistically, especially because now wrestling is so tied to my livelihood and the roof over my head, I don't have an answer for that. I do know that there was a brief moment where it was like COVID and the indies were dying and everybody was getting called out and speaking out stuff, where I was like, well, if this is going to continue on for a while, that might do it. But with the way things are going now, I don't think that there's anything.
I'm going to say fundamentally that I've been watching wrestling since at least 2002, and I've never stopped watching it. So it's been 20 years at this point. And I don't ever see myself stopping, because there have been times during those 20 years that WWE in particular has been just god-awful. Like some of the worst television. But that's the thing that has always separated me from Tony in terms of this merge malarkey and stuff like that, is there's always something out there that's going to scratch that itch for you. And if WWE's not doing it, you always find somebody else doing it. And obviously right now AEW is doing a lot of positive things on my front. Again, it's like there are issues definitely that are coming to the forefront, but it still excites me and I still enjoy watching it. Some of the most fun that I've had in the last few years watching wrestling has been watching AEW. But I know that if that starts falling off, I know WWE is going up, but there's also other things. Like for a good period of time, I was a very hardcore New Japan fan, and I was watching basically every show New Japan were doing on the day that it came out. I was watching every single thing. I'm more casual now than I used to be, but like I could always go back to that, especially now that, well, at least in the near future, when fans will be able to actually make noise rather than just clap their hands. I think I'll probably get more on board with that again. There was Lucha Underground. I was such a huge fan of Lucha Underground. It was one of the best things going, and until it like skidded into the dirt, as these things typically tend to do. But for a while, that was the big thing that I was always going back to. TNA for a while. I was a big fan in the 2006 to 2009 era. That was before, again, they all skidded into the dirt. They always do at some point or another. But then NXT started up, and that when NXT during their golden period, that was the thing that kept me watching over and over again, even though the main roster WWE stuff was as turgid as ever. So there's always going to be a promotion or something, even if it's just like a small independent thing or whether it's the biggest company or somewhere independent, there's always going to be something that is going to scratch that itch for you if you are a wrestling fan. We're a very interesting breed of people that do enjoy this sort of thing. And even if eventually there are people that will just grow out of it, but there are some people like us that stick through it. And if you basically like it going into adulthood, you never lose it entirely.
Mm-hmm. And I think across the board, like fanboys as well, if you really like something, it doesn't have to be current stuff. You can do a deep dive into the backlog of Batman comic books that exist and are now available through different platforms like DC Universe or Comixology. And same thing with wrestling. Like, if I was to ever fall out of modern wrestling, I don't think that would stop the historian in me from wanting to look up more about the territory days and things like that. You know, there's always something there.
It's a lot easier now to do that than ever before, because now you can have like the network stuff, and you can go back on like a YouTube channel or whatever, and you can do deep dives into anything when it comes to that if you really want to. It all depends on what you are, enjoying at that particular moment.
Yeah, and I can fundamentally understand like falling out of wrestling at the time that you fell out of it, because if you weren't enjoying what WWE was putting out there, WCW at that point were in the absolute doldrums and really heading into the absolute worst stuff they were producing. And I know that you weren't an ECW guy. And so basically trying to find anything else wrestling related, like through tape trading or anything like that, was just completely, it was only for the absolute hardcores at that point.
Too much effort.
So falling out is there, but essentially, as Rob says, if I don't think it's ever going to happen, but if it ever hits a point where just no wrestling promotion is doing anything for me, or I don't want to dive into it, because I know that essentially if I fall out of everything that I enjoy watching right now, I will go to Stardom and I will have a good time for at least for a while on watching Stardom, and I'll just subscribe to them. And then if that fails me, I'll just go to MLW and I'll probably have a good time for a while watching that, just because it'll be fresh and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no reservations or doubts that I will not be a wrestling fan in the next 20 years, let alone the 20 years that I've had so far. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that will make me stop watching wrestling.
We're catching up on some of the other things in the chat. XOY had said, I can't stand the time travel in superhero shows. I have trouble getting into them. A lot of time travel and multiverse stuff happening across the board right now.
Yeah, and I do think it's getting a little
played out.
Specifically, the multiverse concept in other mediums, like how Chip and Dale was basically a giant multiverse movie, because now the strategy is let's just overflow things with, IP. And that's just it.
Yeah. Michael had given us a shout out for, if anybody hasn't checked out a review to a kill, to definitely check it out because it's great. Thank you, Michael, for that. He also says, I don't think I would ever quit watching wrestling completely, but whenever it's not good, I guess I just utilize the fast forward button more often. That's why you get instances for me where it ends up being like, and I haven't watched Rampage in a long time because it didn't really matter. Then I didn't really pay attention to that promo in NXT, that thing. But that's another benefit of the fast forward button too. We got a shout out to the All Talk Show. Loved doing that. That's why I like doing these kind of freeform things too, because it's kind of a mini version of that. Really wish I had the funds and the time to bring that back more often. Again, pick your poison. You could always just be like, do another episode of the All Talk Show. Also asks, what are some words and phrases y'all say that are rare but your gimmicks? One more match and Superstar Scores has been missed. Do you mean more so phrases like how Rob says, here's the thing? Or do you mean...
I think he means... Yeah, I think he's asking about like different things that we haven't done for a while that are like gimmick.
Oh, the gimmick posts
that we could do. Yeah, that we could do.
Let's put it this way. If you go on the page on smarkoutmoment.com, of course, that's the whole point. That's what we're here for. On the features, because I rearranged these somewhat recently, we haven't really done Call the Spot in a long time because it didn't lend itself to a podcast as much. So I do that usually 3 times a year. I tend to do it for Elimination Chamber, for Money in the Bank, and Survivor Series, and I just kind of knock it out pretty fast. we've been doing a lot of fantasy booking stuff and a lot of mock draft and list type things like that because it kind of is pretty good with discussions for like the Mount Rushmores, but we haven't done a Wrestling is 2020 in a while. We will revisit Time Machine Dream Team in the future. Superstar Scores, usually like to save that for when something big happens with somebody, like a retirement. So that way we can kind of be like, all right, their career is over. Now we can judge it. Or unfortunately, if somebody passes away, then they're kind of around that. Play the game. Michael Patrick's saying that play the game is my favorite. Love doing play the game. It's hard to do because we have to like prep some stuff ahead of time. But that I think works pretty well as like a dark cast thing in some ways. So we did one of those. We would have done actually two of those. I know we did one that we were like the audio version, which was fun.
I would like to do like a play the game theme, which is more just like I would say like spin-off and still fit within the play the game thing, but it's more just an actual competitive quiz between two of us with the other person as a host.
Yeah, I'm totally down to do like more trivia quiz,
I feel like we've
game
all got
kind of things
really,
like that.
I think we've all got a very good wrestling knowledge, some in different aspects more than others, but it would be good to just. I like competition personally. I like quizzes and stuff like that. It does like give a bit of impetus to it. So something where we take some of the play the game ones, because a lot of the play the games are more just discussion or like party games, really, like the Wet Bear or Dead or something like that. Like they're just okay, like which one of those ones you do it or Mr. Smark. There's not really a competitive sort of aspect to it, but the things like Tap Out, that's a competitive one. Oh
yeah, two hard truths and a lie.
Well, that's competitive.
Yeah, it's just
there's a right and wrong answer to those ones. So
right, yeah.
It's any instance where there's a right and wrong answer. Those are the ones that I personally enjoy a bit more. But yeah, we could see whether we can do something on that thing. We're just like we do like 3 play the game specials: Tony versus Callum, Tony versus Rob, Rob versus Callum, and the other guy just hosts it. We could try something like that at some point.
Again, that's another great pick your poison type of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially because we would need a little bit of time to make sure that we can, get questions and set that all up. But it's not anything stopping us from doing it outside of the time for it and the interest of doing it. Play the game is one of those things that I typically don't run to when we're doing that. Like a blank week and, we got to figure something out. Partially because it's hard and partially because it never gets any decent clicks. Because nobody's searching for play the game.
No, that was there.
But
I think we've lent ourselves to obviously repeating a few features more prominently than others. Because mainly, well, there is obviously the click aspect and the more, I guess, the overall like context of those ones where you can kind of build it around a recent theme, which makes it more interesting or makes it more likely to be found. But also just that there are concepts that we just like more than others. And I'm just speaking of that personally. Like Mount Rushmore works really well for these discussion topics, and that's why we do a lot of them. I absolutely love the mock drafts because I put a lot of them together, and I think that it's a competitive thing, but it's not really. And that's the best part because it's just like it's a bunch of fun, but we still treat it as if it's like it matters. And then, there's a few other ones. I like the top rope lists and other stuff. Anything that can kind of facilitate a good conversation are the ones that... And then the other ones where you've got like the ones to watch and the awards, they're at a set point of the year. So it's not like we do those in the midpoint of the year or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then for announce tables, it's fun every now and again to just go back and deep dive an old match. We did a Mr. Smart recently. And we made the decision off the back of that we need to do something good next time.
Yeah, we have to figure that out too. And I like doing the things like What If. We haven't done many of those, but I like kind of looking back and trying to figure out another alternative. It's almost like fantasy booking in a lot of ways. But one that I don't really love doing, and this is one of the reasons why we typically don't, is going over. It's reserved primarily for, look, we've got a really big hot tag, and we don't want to make it just, a 3-hour addition to the hot tags and nothing else that week. But we've done them in the past where it's been like the draft recap, for instance. Like that's a good going over topic because it's not really a pay-per-view point, but it kind of is in some ways. So then Daniel Bryan with the future of WWE and him living for AEW. That was another good discussion that we had. That was, I don't know how long that podcast went, but it looks like it's, decent discussion on that. And we usually save it for those, but that's one that we don't do all that frequently for a lot of different reasons. But we also have things on the back burner too that just haven't gotten around to getting a chance to do, like that split crowd one of, having a judge and two people are arguing and then we have to settle on some kind of an agreement here and there. We never did the quick turnaround yet, like doing a full tournament in one shot. Actually, it looks like a list of about like 20 or so things, like the snowball effect. Some of these I don't even remember writing down. Royal Ramble. I don't even remember what that one was. We got McMahon or Other Man, Rob's idea based on a quote from James Cameron.
Wait, what did I do?
That's what I have listed down here is play the game, McMahon or Other Man. Rob's idea based on a quote from James Cameron about something about Avatar. Some kind of link about that.
What? Okay, I'm going to need to remember what the hell that was.
About when I sat down to write the sequels, I knew there was going to be 3 at a time, and eventually it turned into 4. I put together a group of writers and said, I don't want to hear anybody's new ideas or anybody's pitches until we have spent time to figure out what was working on the first film.
Okay, I understand now. We read a bunch of quotes and we decide if it came from Vince McMahon or another man.
Okay, there you go. There's Make the Team. There's Repackage the Movie, where you fan cast a movie with WWE people like we were talking about earlier. There's Devil's Advocate, which I tapped into a little bit. So, I mean, there's lots on the back burner that, again, we just don't have the time for and all that. But for the suggestion of Superstar Score's Mickie James, when she retires, then we definitely will end up doing that.
And just to put a button on the other thing, I really, when it comes to Smark Out Moment, I love the actual discussion with these two. It's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the Darkcast we did yesterday, because we just actually had a really good discussion on the idea of WrestleMania rematches. And anything that lends itself to me working more with Callum and Tony, I'm forever down for.
So let's go into AEW, and then we'll wrap things up after that with whatever else ends up popping up in the chat. One of the other things with AEW that happened this week that is worth talking about on the hot tag side of things is that Orange Cassidy beat Pac to become the new AEW All Atlantic Champion. Finally.
Yeah, good. That was a fun main event, right? Really good match, and yeah, it feels like it's a long time coming that Orange Cassidy would finally have a title belt, and it only needed them to introduce like 15 title belts for that to happen. But
and to have him end up fighting Pac like 7 times.
Yeah, but I mean, he finally got it. I mean, they've been telling that whole story with Pac and his hammer, and they fed that into the finish of this match as well. And it was a really feel good moment to see the confetti coming down, and I think Cassidy really deserves that moment. Like, he's a guy that everyone thought when he brought in, and maybe there was a hint of truth into that, of just being like a joke character or a meme. And he's proven that he's a very, very good wrestler and a very good, a draw for that company to a certain degree. And so it's only right that he finally gets to have a bit of gold around his waist.
Two thumbs up for me.
Yeah. I'll be the party pooper. I think it should have happened in Queens. I don't see why you had to drag it out for 3 weeks.
Oh no, I fully agree with you. Yeah, I think it should have happened last time.
Pop in Queens. Yeah, but other than that, good. Orange Cassidy should be a champion. As Callum said, it shouldn't have taken this many title belts to introduce. I wonder if this is going to mean Cassidy's going to travel, because Pac set this title up as a traveling championship. I wonder if that means like Cassidy's going to Progress or, WXW or any of those companies.
Could be. You would assume that might be the gimmick going forward with the All-Atlantic title, but maybe it was just a pack thing. But I'm sure those other promotions would love to see Orange Cassidy pop up and do some guest spots. So shame he can't pop up in WWE. Good spot for that. And Sean Spears returned. That's another thing that happened in AEW. That's cool. Perfect 10's back doing that.
The 10 gimmick. That's really interesting. I'm really happy for him, and I like that they're continuing the Pinnacle, and I wonder when they're going to run into the Firm. You can't do the Pinnacle without MJF, and that's going to be a very interesting story they tell.
I don't know if I really love that they are going with like the Pinnacle still sticking around instead of just figuring out other spots for them, but I guess we'll see.
Well, I mean, there's no reason they can't be friends, like they can still be friends even though they're not necessarily in this stable together.
Right. Any other AEW stuff you guys want to talk about before we round this out?
So they're going to do Shida versus Toni Storm for the interim women's championship following the tag team victory they had on this show. I think that the absolute sooner they can get this belt on Jamie Hayter, the better, because she is just so over right now. They need to make her the women's champion. Other than that, obviously they did what I expected them to do, which is they had Daniel Garcia turn on Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
Bryan Danielson. Fuck no. And
you called that one for sure.
Yeah, no. And made him reaffirmed his status with the JAS. And it was quite funny. There was someone who tweeted. I just saw a tweet of someone who put out saying, like, look at Daniel Garcia's face. He clearly was blackmailed into this. He didn't actually want to attack Bryan and cost him the title. And Daniel Garcia quote tweeted it saying, "No, I fucking meant to do that."
Yeah, because his initial facial expression was like kind of, torn about it, but then he immediately hugged Jericho, and you're going to see it on Rampage. He will do a promo about it, and I think this was the right move. Yeah. This was definitely the right move.
I think it's a good story. I think it's something that they can drag out a little bit more and add a bit more layers to it before the eventual blow up between them. But yeah, I think it was just it's a good way to try and like freshen things up a little bit before returning to a little bit of the status quo. Other than that, you had Luchasaurus beat Jungle Boy. And I imagine they will have another match where Jungle Boy does get the win back. But it was good to see that they're actually putting stock into Luchasaurus. They had him wrestle like Kane pretty much in aspects of it. He even did the sit-up spot. So that was cool. And yeah, apparently Mark Sterling owns the trademark Cesaro.
Yeah, I like that they're playing around with the trademark stuff.
It's a nice, again, it's a nice little thing which will lead to a small mini feud where they defend the titles against Nice and Woods in a one-off match, and then they'll move on. But yeah, at least they're still featuring the Acclaimed heavily as the tag champions, which is good because occasionally in the past they've had the team win the tag team titles in particular and then just fall off the face of the earth a bit, like they did with the Lucha Bros. So at least the Acclaimed are still being featured heavily on TV week in, week out. Should we talk a bit about Rampage? Or do we want to spoil anything for Rampage?
Earmuffs if you don't want to hear the spoilers.
Yep. So Rampage, there's I guess the most interesting new arrival is the debut of the Kingdom. Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, and Maria Kanellis. They appear at the end of the in the main event following FTR and Sean Spears defeating the Embassy, and they attack FTR and the Embassy, which likely leads to a Ring of Honor tag team title shot down the line for those two once they've built up a bit more credibility within AEW. But this is just leading. The fact they're bringing these people in leads to more and more fuel to the fire that they must have something in the works for Ring of Honor.
So, and let's go here because I know, listen, Meltzer put out a scary update about a certain individual, basically saying, "Oh, Adam Cole could be back tomorrow. He could be back never," which is great. But maybe they're replacing Undisputed with the Kingdom, because they are calling them the Kingdom, and Adam Cole is the fourth piece of that. So I'd be interested to see if they were ready to do something with him and they're going to be involved in that. Of course, I think this is a great move, especially for Ring of Honor. Maria is great for the Ring of Honor women's division. I think she needs to be brought on to fix the AEW women's division. I think great moves all around, but I'm interested that these guys went straight from Impact to AEW instead, because WWE definitely had interest in Taven and Bennett.
And also just another thing that happens on Rampage that we'll see as well is that the next supposed victim in the Jericho crusade against all former Ring of Honor champions is going to be Dalton Castle.
Good move.
Which makes a lot of sense. He's a very charismatic guy that Jericho will be able to have a good match with.
And he's
a guy that could easily beat, yeah.
What else happened on Rampage?
I mean, a Butcher and Blade came back with the bunny. Bunny's back.
And she tried to point the camera.
And they lost to Moxley and Claudio because, of course. What was the other match that happened on? Oh, it was the Matt Hardy. Oh, this is the worst. Okay, this is shit in AEW. And I'll fully hold my hands up. So I won't even try to defend this stuff. This whole tossing around of people's contracts and the private party being part of the firm now. And now they had Ethan Page beat Isaiah Cassidy. So that means Matt Hardy's now part of the firm as well. Just why do you have reluctant people in stables? Just kick them out. Just it's okay, they want to do their own thing as a trio. Well, let them. Who cares? Yeah. Why do they need to be now under the thumb of the firm?
And I'll just say this. I don't think the contract tampering, I don't think that's cute. Just because there was the whole stuff about WWE potentially contract tampering the AEW. I tweeted about this on Wednesday, that Tony Khan seems to be a mark for wrestlers and managers buying the contracts of other wrestlers. I think it works when it's Bobby Heenan buying Hercules from Slick. I think it works a lot less when everybody is reluctant about working under people. And now Matt Hardy is going to be another reluctant person. And I can only assume that this is leading to either Hardy and Private Party being a trio's babyface, or maybe you found a way to bring Jeff back. Either way, I can guarantee you this is probably not what they had in mind when they announced Andrade versus Preston Vance and a mask versus career match.
Definitely not the case.
Oh, sorry, that's the final big thing that we got from AEW Rampage.
Oh,
Steve Grayson is back.
Yes! Because he should have never left.
Has there been any kind of information about if he's fully signed a contract or if he's on a per appearance thing? Or
I don't think there's been anything to that extent that's been put out there, but he did appear in a backstage segment with the Dark Order, and essentially put his hand back in with them, so it seems to be reunited with them. So whether it's a short-term thing or it will be permanently, it's still a great move. I really liked his team with Evil Uno. I thought they were a really great tag team, and he's a great worker. And maybe just going away for a little while, being able to reset himself a little bit, and has led him to come back. And it could be a spark that reignites the Dark Order a little bit into being, again, they will never be top names in the company, but to be just a more frequently featured act could be good.
Since we brought this up earlier in the podcast, Baron Corbin was speaking on the Johnny Dare Morning Show, and he talked about working with Triple H. And he said he's a guy who really helped him develop his original character. And now that he's back on, they've been having conversations about how do we bring the edge back to your character. So there you go.
He is Edge now.
Now, God damn it, Tony. I hate you. The point is, these are good things for Corbin, and hopefully it leads to maybe Baron Corbin being just slightly more of a badass instead of a joke.
I'm interested to see if they do anything tonight on SmackDown. We know we're going to get some Wyatt stuff. And yeah, I mean, we'll probably get.
We better get.
You don't
I
think
was
so?
thinking about that actually. We better get like Wyatt in building, doing something worth a damn. Not like
that Raw was so disappointing. The fact that he wasn't actually there on the show.
Yeah. I mean, they're advertising Bray Wyatt returns to SmackDown, so I'm assuming that he will pop up for that, but
it's got to be because Fox is giving them more money, but like Raw tends to feel like they treat it like the B show at times. Why wouldn't you have Wyatt on that show?
No idea. I think it's maybe just because they want to have Wyatt against Roman soon or something.
And then they announced recently a fatal 4-way to determine Gunther's next challenger. Yeah. And it's Ricochet, Sheamus, Cross, and Sikoa. Interesting match. For me, the most interesting thing is the inclusion of Sikoa because they're advertising for the house shows upcoming, Bloodline versus Imperium.
That's interesting.
I'm not against that at all. It would be odd to go straight with Sikoa just because I just don't think they'd end Gunther's reign that quickly, but I could be wrong. And but I think the likelihood is out of those choices. I mean, Ricochet's the guy that Gunther beat, and he's not exactly like pulling up trees at the moment, so you wouldn't have him be the guy to face Gunther. You've already done the matches with Sheamus, so unless you're essentially going to go third time's the charm, you have Sheamus win this, and then he has to be Gunther for the title. Cross, you should just have him get taken out by McIntyre to set up a match at Crown Jewel. So Sikoa makes the most sense just for the fact that we haven't seen that match before. It just seems a bit early to do that, but I guess we'll see.
I think I'll put out the ending like this. I think you're right as far as McIntyre taking out Cross. I think Sikoa can have Ricochet beat and something happens to him. I think Sheamus wins. I think we're getting a cage match at Crown Jewel because I think they need to do like one more because the Imperium did beat. The Brawling Brutes did beat Imperium at the pay-per-view, and a cage match makes sense because they've had so much interference. But I think Sikoa by November, December is looking like the next IC champion.
I'm gonna predict that Sheamus wins, and they just run it back again
with some feeling. With some Tony, with some feeling. Who's winning?
I haven't eaten much today. There's no feeling. I guess we'll figure that out later on tonight with SmackDown and ran through some of these mailbag things. Nothing else firing off in the chat for us to really kind of bounce back and finish this off with. And we're past the 2 hour and 15 minute mark now anyway. So that's probably going to do us in for this Q4 mailbag and the hot tags for this week. Now, if you did not get a chance to send in a mailbag question and you want to do that for the future when we get around to Q1 in 2023, I don't know exactly when we're going to do the podcast. It'll probably be sometime around mid-January or so, and more than likely we'll probably tie it in with the hot tags like we've been doing because it seems like that works pretty well. So probably around that Friday in that mid-range of that. If you want to send in a question in advance, the best way to do it is to go to the contact page on smarkoutmoment.com and fill out that form, and it'll go into my actual mailbag inbox, and then I'll be able to like kind of backlog that, and we'll get around to that when the time comes. But if you want to leave a comment below as well, you could also do that, and I could try to keep that in mind or anything, or maybe keep the discussion going in some fashion. If you're listening to this on the audio-only platforms, then you can't leave a comment below, but you can go over on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. You could do something over there. Obviously, we mentioned earlier, fanboysanonymous.com is a place where you can check out all the discussion on the geek culture topics, and you can do the same kind of support stuff that we have over from Smark Out Moment over there. We have a Patreon. We have the channel membership to join on YouTube. We've got Redbubble and TeePublic for merchandise options, and you get the thanks button and everything. So if you support one, you support the other one by proxy because it's all funneling back to me being able to pay off some of the stupid bills that come along with this. And then the other stuff that you can find under amangotree.com or anthonymango.com There's probably some other .coms that I have that switching that to. I don't know. I've lost track of where these domains forward. But the list of that is all over on there. And you can find different things like my personal social media accounts, which are at Tony Mango, Facebook and Twitter and such. But as you're clicking around and you're following things and all that, you should also do the same to Rob and Callum to follow what they are up to. Rob?
Follow me on all the social medias at Dude Felice. You can check out my work on Fightful.com. Tonight I will be on the Fightful Rampage SmackDown post show with Kate Elizabeth. And I'll be working all weekend with the wrestling news. So, just be sure to click around. DudeFelice.com is coming, which will probably lend itself to more, pop culture writings and maybe even some fantasy booking, just as I get a little bit more control over things. But speaking of control, who's got control of a lot of stuff, including the power rankings? Callum Wiggins.
Yep, so that is where you'll find my week-to-week ramblings over on the Smark Out Moment website, over in the power rankings, where I decide to position people from the WWE roster any which way I so choose to do so. What I do not have control over the positions of, because it's all points-based, is the WWE Fantasy League. If you're over on the website or wwefantasyleague.com, you'll be able to follow who's been picking up points, which wrestlers are helping us rise up in terms of our scores on a week-to-week basis, who's helping Tony stick out the lead as it is right now, who's trying to drive my way to catch back up, who is dragging Rob down on a week-to-week basis.
Roman Reigns. That's who.
He's probably a good contributor to that as well. But you follow all of that stuff there. You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. And that is everything from my end.
What was the rule again at the end of the year? However many weeks you need to.
So this is. So I'll bring this up here. We've been talking about a lot of stuff, so we might as well do a bit of fantasy league clarification. So as it stands, like points just being calculated, there's no negative points that you can gather on a week-to-week basis. But at the end of the year, any wrestler that hasn't appeared for who is fired loses a considerable amount of points, and that fits for a couple of people on both mine and Tony's team so far. They're people that do not appear for a grand total of at least 25 weeks of the year, or missed. I think it's actually like they missed 25 weeks of the year. Will suffer a penalty, and anyone who doesn't feature for about 10 weeks of the year suffers a smaller penalty than that. So it's basically you want to make sure that the people that are on your teams are appearing consistently on the shows. So your picks, like say your Boas or your Big E's, or
Sasha Banks and Naomi,
Sasha Banks and all that stuff, are all going to hurt you at the end. So even when we hit the final scores, there will then be some final calculations on that WrestleMania post-show to figure out who actually won the event in the end.
Some people, at this point, you would know if they reached that not able to do the 25.
There's a good chance. I know that certain people like Randy Orton is going to suffer a penalty, and I know that Cody Rhodes and Becky Lynch are both probably going to suffer penalties. And
is Roman?
No, potentially he might suffer the lowest penalty, but I think that he's appearing consistently enough. I'm trying to say, I think he's appeared in about 2/3 of the week so far. So if he keeps that up, he might just survive without suffering a penalty. He might get one of the lower ones. But you look at people like Randy, Sasha Banks,
Naomi.
Naomi. Look at. There's some people that have just gone through. Like, there's Tiffany Stratton right now, has not appeared for a long time. Got I think that there's just quite a few people that will eventually maybe take some kind of penalty, and that could change the entire scores by the end of the year as well. So even though we're tracking the scores right now based on just if everyone is gonna keep all the points they've taken and won't hit any penalties, by the end of the year we'll know who's going to be dropping a hefty amount of points.
People want me to win, Callum. How likely is that?
Well, considering the fact you've got both Big E and John Cena on your team, I don't think that's
The
unlikely,
people.
really. and Roman and Charlotte Flair are your number one and number two picks. So.
You tell me, in what universe is that a bad number one and number two? How dare they do this to my fantasy league? How dare they?
The WWE universe.
It's wrong. It's wrong is what it is. And shame on them.
Well, that will have updates as time goes on, and we get into some of the more pay-per-views that are heading towards our way. And next week, we have another pay-per-view coming up with Halloween Havoc. So our main event content is going to be circling around that. We're going to do a predictions post. We're going to do, I don't know, it's not a predictions post. Of course, we're going to do a predictions post. I'm going to write up like 15 of them. But we're all going to do our Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions and our post-show is what I meant to be saying for the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view. And another round of the hot tags coming up next week. So whatever happens over the course of the next few days we didn't talk about here, we will talk about there. We hope that we can have you join us for those 3 episodes coming up. And if you want to go check back on that Darkcast and the Mount Rushmore that we did, a lot of great stuff already happened earlier this week too. So thank you for all of your support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and all your comments and all the other things that go along with that. But that's going to do us in for this edition. Adios for now, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.